At the Navy's late-night banquet, everyone raised their glasses in cheer. Following was the social gathering of the upper class, each dressed in splendid and luxurious formal attire. Outside, the night sky was incredibly beautiful, and the final destination. The casino in the entertainment district. Bastian stepped out of the carriage, looking around. Suddenly, someone came up and patted Bastian's shoulder, asking what he was doing. "Hurry up and go in, this person is Lucas von Ewald, the only son of Count Ewald, chairman of the Berg Imperial Chamber of Commerce." Bastian quickly answered Lucas's question. Because of a slight unexpected event, Erihai followed, vaguely saying, "You'll know soon enough." Erihai winked playfully and said, "Depending on how you look at it, there are many interesting things here, and Erihai is Erihai Faber, the eldest son of the Faber family. A rising force in the steel industry." Seeing Bastian's indifferent expression, Erihai was curious. "What's wrong, don't you like casinos?" Erihai and Lucas stared intently at Bastian, leaving him unsure of what to say. Then, he suddenly closed his eyes. Preparing himself, he went inside with his two friends. "Let's go in," Erihai cheerfully praised Bastian. "That's the spirit, I would have been so disappointed if you'd gone home." Entering the casino. Everyone was intently playing cards. Then, three handsome, tall men radiating charisma walked in. Seeing the three of them, the casino owner happily jumped up to greet them warmly. "Finally, you've arrived." The casino owner ran over to tell them about his worries. "I've been so anxious because it's been so long since you visited." At this moment, the casino owner looked at Bastian. Seeing him as someone he was meeting for the first time, he asked Lucas curiously, "But this gentleman?" Lucas happily replied to the casino owner, "I introduced him. It's his first time here, so it's understandable that you don't know him." Lucas decided to reveal Bastian's identity to the casino owner. "Do you know the person who's been causing a stir in the news recently? In the naval battle in the Trosa Islands, he didn't hesitate to engage in close combat right on the deck, bravely jumping into the enemy base and capturing the admiral of the Nobita army alive. He's the hero of the empire, Captain Bastian Closets. He looked incredibly valiant at the time. And he's standing right here." Lucas happily introduced him to the casino owner. "That person is standing right here." Hearing Bastian's name, the casino owner immediately realized he was incredibly wealthy and his eyes lit up with admiration. "I never dared to dream I'd meet the hero who protects the Empire's sea borders here. It's a true honor for me, Captain." The casino owner bowed respectfully and invited the three of them upstairs. "Please go this way, I'll take you to the special room prepared on the second floor." Erihai, walking behind, admired Lucas's introduction. "Every time you meet someone, you introduce me in such an exaggerated way," but Lucas didn't care and was even proud of Bastian. "So what? I want to brag about my friend." As the three were going upstairs, Bastian heard a man's voice echoing in his ear. "Please, just one more time, please give me one more chance." He glanced over. He saw a gambling addict begging the guard incessantly, "Please let me in, I still have money to bet." The guard, seeing the addict kneeling and begging, couldn't help but look down on him. "Ah, it's indeed true, the beggar Duke, then show me where you're hiding that betting money." The addict, hearing this, trembled and stammered, that." The addict immediately thought of his daughter, whom he could use as collateral, disregarding familial affection. "That's right, my daughter, I'll use my daughter as collateral." The addict became increasingly outrageous, constantly praising his daughter to get the highest price. "You all know how talented and beautiful my daughter is. Isn't she? Compared to that child, is the bet even worth mentioning? So just let me play one round." Before the addict could finish speaking, someone came up and put a hand on his shoulder, calling out, "Hey, can you take responsibility for what you just said?" The addict turned around to see who was talking to him, and Erihai continued, "That your daughter will pay off all the bets and more. I mean, can you guarantee that?" The addict, hearing Erihai's words, hesitated but then affirmed, "That's natural, my daughter is in this city. No, I can proudly say she's the most beautiful woman in the empire." Erihai, hearing the addict's affirmation, simply smiled faintly. Then, gradually standing up, he exclaimed, "It seems this is going to be even more interesting." Erihai turned to ask Bastian and Lucas for their opinions. "What do you guys think?" Lucas, also very interested, ran over. "It's worth a try, isn't it?" Lucas stopped Bastian from leaving. "Bastian, you've come all the way here, you can't leave halfway." Bastian, hearing this, could only helplessly sigh in response to his friend's pleas. "I know." At this time, the addict was brought into the room and sat with the three of them. The waiter immediately dealt the cards. Then, he discarded the remaining cards to the side. Bastian didn't seem to care much about this game, perhaps being the loser wouldn't be too bad. Thinking this, he smiled and said to everyone, "Let's begin." Outside, the sky was as dark as ink. Inside the casino, the area where the four of them were sitting was incredibly crowded with onlookers. Others, seeing the crowd, curiously asked those watching, "What kind of gambling is going on here that everyone's gathered?" The watchers straightforwardly replied, "TCH, you're late, so you probably haven't heard that Beggar Duke has bet his daughter. And it looks like the bet is about to end." The addict looked at the cards in his hand with a worried expression, sweating profusely. Erihai disappointedly discarded his cards because he lost the bet. "I couldn't salvage anything this round." Lucas also couldn't win this round, me neither. Then, Lucas turned to curiously ask Bastian, who was seriously looking at his cards, "What about you, Bastian?" Bastian casually replied, "Well, the cards in my hand aren't too bad after all." Saying this, Bastian placed his cards on the table, causing the addict to be shocked speechless. Erihai was so astonished that he jumped up and exclaimed, "Wow, that's practically a royal flush." Lucas teased Bastian, "So, Captain Closets has brought home the most beautiful woman in the empire?" Erihai couldn't believe Bastian was so lucky. "What is this? Playing cards with the goddess of victory blessing him, isn't that against the rules?" The addict, currently losing his mind, said, "I lost? Impossible." Those who were watching earlier came closer and told the addict, "Come on, now you have to pay the bet." Another watcher chimed in, teasing, "Is the Beggar Duke choosing a son-in-law?" The addict quickly denied the watcher's words. "No, something's wrong here." Bastian, hearing that the addict didn't want to do what he said, felt uncomfortable and thought, "He's so pathetic that I don't want to look at him anymore." Bastian quickly stood up to leave. "Everyone, stop it, let's go." Lucas, hearing Bastian urge them to leave so hastily, was startled and reminded him, "What are you saying, Bastian? You have to collect the bet." Erihai also ran to stop him. "That's right, it's your rightful claim." At this moment, the addict suddenly realized something. He immediately stopped Bastian. Wait a minute." The addict begged Bastian to play one more time after the previous loss. "Please forgive me just this once. If we play again, I'll definitely." Seeing the addict so pathetic made Bastian uncomfortably glare at him, causing the addict to shudder in fear. Bastian couldn't help but feel disgusted and quickly pushed him away. Seeing Bastian's behavior, Lucas quickly understood his mood. "He's getting angry." Lucas called the guard. "Hey, I want to collect the bet as promised." The addict, hearing this, was startled. He resentfully didn't want to lose his beautiful, stunning daughter so easily. He stood up and made a threatening gesture. "Do you guys know who I am?" The addict suddenly rushed towards Bastian, constantly shouting about himself, "Daring to treat me like this, you'll be repaid for it soon. If news of you touching my daughter reaches the emperor, you definitely won't be left in peace." "Because that child," he said, smirking. The addict affirmed that his daughter was flowing with precious royal blood to the point that you can't even look up to her. The addict's daughter was indeed as beautiful as the rumors said. The night grew later and later. The clock struck exactly 12 o'clock at the same time. A girl was knitting and suddenly stopped. Then, she looked outside, anxiously waiting for her gambling addict father. "It's late, I wonder when father will be back." Odette gently called out to the girl sleeping soundly beside her, "Tira." Tira woke up when she was called. Then, she hurriedly sat up and asked Odette, "Sister Odette, father still hasn't returned?" Odette smiled happily as she looked at the worried Tira. "No, not yet." Tira anxiously kept asking Odette for her opinion. "What if something happens again? What will we do?" She took Tira's hand and comforted her. "It's okay, nothing will happen. It's late, don't wait anymore. Let's go to sleep first." Tira obediently did as she was told. "Okay." The two of them walked back to the room together. Suddenly a creaking sound rang out in front, scaring Tira. "That sound is scary." Odette comforted Tira. "Oh, it's okay, it's just the wind." Although Odette comforted her, Tira was still very scared and hid behind her. "But, it sounds like a ghost crying." Reaching Tira's room, Odette laid Tira on the bed, patting her gently. "Sleep well, Tira." Being gently cared for by her sister made Tira feel like she had another mother. "I'm not your child, though." Odette didn't say anything, but smiled beautifully. Then, she left. Odette returned to the living room and continued to be busy, regardless of how late it was. "So now, I need to rearrange the list of essential items to buy and go to sleep. Tomorrow I can sell the lace that I've finished making in the past few days." Odette's family had truly become poor because her father was a gambling addict. "Last year, I was still living comfortably in a house with hot water, but father caused trouble. So we don't have much money left, so we had to find a cheaper place to rent." Odette remembered what Tira had said earlier. Tira said it sounded like a ghost crying, but that creepy sound, in my ears, was somehow sweet, because the whole family was almost kicked out on the streets. Odette felt a little relieved. However, I managed to get the attic of an old building. All thanks to the royal grant for my deceased mother. Thinking this, Odette took out her mother's picture to look at. According to what she knew about her mother, she was actually the first princess, the one whom the late emperor of this country loved dearly. Princess Helene, born and raised in the love of all the people, she was incredibly beautiful and radiant, making everyone who met her fall in love. Even the flowers were ashamed. The princess once had a fiancé, the heir of Robida. They were a couple blessed by both the royal family and the people. But one night, 3 months before the wedding, the princess suddenly disappeared. She followed the darkness and fled, with her secret lover, Duke Dessen, a family that had fallen into utter ruin. Of course, that shocked the entire empire. The emperor was disappointed in his daughter. He bluntly announced a break in relations and ordered the confiscation of all the princess's assets and status, and exiled her from the empire. The outcome was not difficult to predict. Her parents became poor wanderers in an instant. At that time, Odette's mother stroked her hair and called out, "Odette." She advised Odette to remember, never lose your dignity in any circumstances. Odette also smiled brightly, deeply engraving her mother's words. Yes, mother. Her mother had strictly raised her, constantly hoping that one day she would regain her original royal status. Dancing, etiquette, music, painting, and learning many different foreign languages, she devoted herself to learning everything according to her mother's wishes. But, suddenly one day Odette cried out, "Mother." Her mother slumped down with a mouth full of blood, leaving her last words to her beloved daughter, "Odette, my dear daughter. You must regain your original position." Odette, hearing her mother's words, could only cry sadly. "The day we return with our former honor has not yet come." The mother who always clung to hope as a faith, breathed her last in a miserable reality with no way out. Odette placed the picture of her deceased mother back on the table. Then, she thoughtfully thought about herself. Will my ending be like mother's? While lost in thought, someone knocked on the door outside and asked, "Is anyone there?" Odette, hearing the call, looked back. Then, without hesitation, she casually opened the door and asked the person who came, "What's the matter? It's so late at night." The guard asked for Odette's name. "Are you Miss Odette, the daughter of Lord Dessen?" Odette, hearing this, was startled, thinking something had happened to her father, and immediately affirmed, "Yes, that's me. What happened to my father?" The guard quickly said, "Then please come with me." The guard told Odette everything about her gambling addict father. "It seems he's caused another terrible debt at the casino." She couldn't help but be startled upon hearing this. The guard reminded her, "Please go there to hear a more detailed explanation." Knowing her father had caused more debt, she angrily clenched her fist. "Father again." Odette spoke up, "I see." Then, she quickly went back inside to prepare, not forgetting to tell the guard, "I'll get ready, please wait a moment." Seeing Odette so calm as if nothing had happened made the guard feel sorry for her. Has she gotten used to this situation? Her life is gradually being destroyed completely by her trash father. Odette went to put on her gloves. Then, taking her cloak, she remembered the words her deceased mother had taught her. "Mother taught me not to lose my dignity in any circumstances." She repeated that sentence like a habit. Surely someone will scorn that it's useless, but I don't want to erase the traces of the past. After all, that's still the last thing mother left me before she passed away. After preparing, Odette turned to the guard and said, "I'm ready, let's go." On this side, the addict was constantly begging the casino owner to spare Odette. "I beg you, don't do that to her. She has royal blood in her. If you do that, there will be big trouble." But the casino owner didn't care and was even very annoyed with him. "Are you trying to have your cake and eat it too? You were the one who bet that noble daughter. Now begging is useless. The guards have long gone to pick up your daughter." The addict, hearing this, trembled in disbelief. "No, impossible." At this time, Lucas came over and curiously asked Bastian for his feelings. "Hey, Bastian, you're about to meet the granddaughter of His Majesty the Emperor. How do you feel?" Bastian didn't answer and turned to ask Lucas a question. "Do you believe that man's words?" Lucas quickly stated his thoughts in a half-hearted manner. "I just think, if it's true, it would be very interesting." But as for believing it, Erihai was very puzzled as to why Bastian would ask such a question when he already knew that his daughter was a beautiful person. Isn't his affirmation that she's the most beautiful woman in the empire trustworthy? Seeing Lucas and Erihai so interested made Bastian have to go along with everything. They seem quite interested. I guess I have to try to cooperate with this mess to the end. At this moment, the guard brought Odette. I brought her. Bastian curiously looked over. Those who were watching also eagerly waited. Finally, she's here. Odette walked inside, gradually moving towards her father. But unexpectedly, she brushed past, causing the addict to panic. Odette, covering her face with a black hat, asked everyone in the casino, "Tell me, how much does my father owe?" Everyone was very surprised upon hearing her question. Huh? Those watching, hearing Odette's question, began to whisper and discuss, "What's up with that girl, why is she so arrogant?" The watcher next to them quickly realized. She probably doesn't understand the situation. Erihai took the initiative to tell Odette about the current situation. "It seems that Miss is mistaken about something. We didn't call you here to pay off the debt." Odette, hearing this, immediately wanted to leave. "If that's the case, I have no reason to stay here anymore. I'll take my father away." Erihai quickly stopped her. "That makes it too difficult for us. Let your father go, but you have to stay." Odette asked in confusion, "You said?" Erihai immediately stated what was placed as a bet in the game. "Because that father bet you." Odette couldn't help but be startled upon hearing this. Erihai continued, "And the person standing over there is the person who won that bet." Immediately everyone's gaze focused on Bastian. Erihai, after updating Odette on the situation, asked again, "Do you understand the situation?" Odette was extremely shocked. She shouted, "Father," the addict could only kneel on the ground and beg, "I'm so sorry, daughter. I didn't think things would turn out like this." Thinking the addict had understood, he still stubbornly said, "Clearly, I could have won big." Hearing this, those around couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Odette was so angry that she clenched her fist. Then, she remembered the attire of the three men, splendid white uniforms. Without guessing, they were naval officers. If they work in the capital, then they must belong to the upper class. What should I do? Should I run away with father? No matter how we run, there are still guards outside. Odette quickly turned away. Her eyes immediately became sad. As expected, this is the only way. Odette approached Bastian. When she just stopped, Odette shouted and asked Bastian, "Aren't you ashamed? Soldiers who protect the empire are actually involved in gambling. Surely you also know that you can't make contracts to trade people, right?" Bastian sneered dismissively, "Pulling out morality and law in this place isn't a satisfactory solution." Odette still tried to use that professional ethics to pressure Bastian, since when can soldiers use the location as an excuse for losing their honor and dignity? Bastian became annoyed with Olette's scolding. "I didn't expect to be lectured in this situation, and she's even speaking with such a straightforward attitude." After saying a bunch, Odette begged Bastian, "Please forgive my father's mistake this once. I will pay off the entire bet on behalf of my father." Bastian, hearing this, put his hand in his pocket and said, "What should I do? I don't want to." His face at this moment looked very punchable, causing Odette to be startled. Bastian gradually approached Odette and affirmed, "The one who has the right to command here is me. Because you've fallen into my hands," Bastian said with a very smug expression. Then, Bastian challenged Odette, "Try taking off that veil. I don't care about the money, and I'm not interested in you, but I can't be the only one who's losing out. So let me see your face once and then end this matter." Odette stepped back and staggered. Then, Bastian glanced at Odette with interest. Acting like this is probably worth watching. Lucas, seeing the scene between the two, sighed, "It's a bit perfunctory, isn't it?" Erihai also wanted to see and told Bastian, "Drag it out a bit more." Bastian felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Seeing these two so verbose, these guys don't know when to stop. Bastian was uncomfortable and didn't want to drag it out. "If I just let people go without paying, then I'll continue to be involved with her. I've already made a concession by getting caught up in this troublesome matter." Odette's father, hearing this, came forward and urged his daughter, "Okay, do as they want and leave here quickly." Bastian also affirmed, "Yeah, if you don't want to, then I can only follow the rules." Odette was unsure and asked again to confirm, "Can you keep your promise?" Bastian, hearing this, only smiled without saying a word. Following honor and dignity is integrity, too noble to seek them in a casino. Bastian turned back and affirmed with certainty, "Of course." Odette, hearing this, clenched her hands until they trembled. Then, she prepared to take off the veil. "You must keep your promise." Lucas and Erihai were very much looking forward to seeing Odette's beauty. To the surprise of everyone in the casino, Odette took off her hat, revealing her eyes. A face as beautiful as a sculpture. Bastian, upon seeing that face, seemed to be entranced and lost in thought. He remembered what Odette's father had said before and was a little surprised. "I thought he was a pathetic scammer." Standing before Odette, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart, but his daughter is really beautiful, that truth is perfectly undeniable. The next morning, Odette's father had returned home and slept soundly, regardless of the troubles he had caused. Tira came to the front of the room early in the morning to ask Odette for her opinion. Sister, should I block the door with a wooden board? She happily asked from inside. Block the door, then what will you do? Tira said sadly, you don't need to know. To be honest, even if father is locked in that room and whatever happens to him, I don't care. No, it's better that way. Seeing her sister react like that made Odette worry. Tira turned away and said resentfully, every day I have to endure, he's always drinking, then debt from gambling and everything else. Those things are okay, I'm used to it. I will never forgive what he did to you and me. Look at him, Tira said, revealing her resentment towards her gambling addict father to the point of selling his daughter. Tira was annoyed by her father's dead-like sleep. He comes back leisurely as if nothing happened, and now he's stretching out his legs, sleeping soundly. How can he be so shameless? Odette didn't seem to pay attention to Tira's words but remembered that last night, she was able to return safely. It was all thanks to the man who won that despicable bet. Bastien had let Odette go then. Just consider that I received the bet. Odette felt very lucky, thankfully, that officer kept his promise, because I had to endure the humiliation of revealing my face. Thanks to that, father and I were able to escape from that place. Suddenly, Tira spoke up and asked, can't we report this to His Majesty the Emperor? Tira wanted Odette to ask the royal family for help. Before father causes more trouble, please ask them to help you. What if they agree to help? Besides, you're the emperor's granddaughter. Suddenly the book Odette was holding fell to the ground. She stood up to stop her. That's not allowed. Tira, suddenly being blocked by Odette with such a harsh attitude startled Tira. What Odette feared was, if they find out about what father did, the royal family might cut off our allowance. She went to hug Tira's shoulders tightly and advised, listen carefully to what I say, absolutely no is no, understand? Seeing Odette's harsh reaction, Tira was also very surprised and called out, sister. Tira decided to listen to Odette. I know, I'm sorry, for bringing up the royal family. Hearing Tira's words, Odette was relieved and hugged Tira. At this moment, Odette thought sadly, why would they be willing to help me? A daughter of a trash who ruined his younger sister's life. Because my existence is contemptible to the emperor. Ardemes, a coastal city near the capital, where the mansions of royalty and nobles are concentrated, the northern region has countless beautiful scenery, known as the Pearl of Ardemes. Originally, it was owned by a long-standing count, but as eras passed, they gradually weakened and someone bought the territory. At the territory, a car drove in. A newly rich family monopolizing most of the railways of the Berg's empire. It was the Closet's family. As soon as Bastien returned, someone ran out to greet him. Oh my, Bastien. Did you drive that pile of metal all the way here yourself? This woman was Maria Gross, Bastien's aunt. Bastien pointed to the car for his aunt to see. Yes, as you can see, Maria spoke up and scolded affectionately, I can't understand you anymore. Why do you keep doing the things your father hates so much? Bastien then put his hand forward and replied, you wouldn't know. Maybe he'll have mercy on the son who doesn't have enough money to hire a driver, Bastien said with a bright and very handsome smile. At this moment, the door of the mansion was opened. Inside was very decorated, making everyone dazzled. Servants. Maria and Bastien entered with the greeting of the servants. Maria spoke up to remind Bastien, when someone cares about your assets more than you do, that's your father. Bastien, hearing this, only replied gently and casually, it's not to the extent of calling it assets, it's just an old house and a trivial trust fund. Maria, hearing her nephew answer so indirectly, quickly understood, still as evasive as ever, the rumors that he inherited a huge fortune from his mother's family have spread. Maria also quickly understood Bastien, if you don't want to show off, then I'll respect you, instead, but also didn't forget to warn, remember to hold on tight. Maria suddenly mentioned his grandfather, the reason why grandfather handed you the knife, she meant, you know better than anyone. Bastien quickly pretended to be innocent and smiled brightly, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Maria knew her nephew was a stubborn person, so she had to sigh helplessly. Then she pointed forward and asked, you know, right? Today's party is to announce the engagement of Franz, your younger brother. I heard the target is the daughter of Count Klein. Bastien affirmed, yes, Marion, hearing this, could know the expression Bastien's father showed, then I know too well how wide your father's smile was. Suddenly Bastien's eyes darkened. Remembering his younger brother, Franz, his half-brother, his mother was a noble, his father had always yearned to improve his status, and without hesitation, chose Franz as the successor to the family. Suddenly Bastian smirked, thinking, that darling son has a high-ranking aristocratic wife, he must be ecstatic. Maria, seeing that he still didn't have a target to marry, quickly reminded him, and you should also marry someone who will be your wings. Bastian immediately gave a bright smile and returned to Maria, yes, I will keep it in mind. Hearing his answer made Maria even more uneasy. That's a really reliable answer. At this moment, Maria remembered the main thing and reminded Bastian, and let me warn you, it's best not to dare look at Princess Isabel, who will make you fall into hell. Bastian wondered, she's the eldest daughter of Bergs? Maria affirmed, yes, rumors that Princess Isabel is madly in love with you have spread throughout the upper class. Hearing this, he remembered, that one who followed the emperor when I was still an officer. At that time, that look in her eyes made him very pressured. He shook his head and refused, I don't have any feelings for that one. Maria didn't care and talked about the emperor, you think so, but the emperor is different. Maria then told him the reason, because the emperor once saw his younger sister blindly ruin her life for love. If you think his daughter can live like Princess Helene once did, then it will be very difficult to give a reasonable explanation. Hearing this, he knew who that person was, the unfortunate princess, Helene. Suddenly Bastian remembered Odette's father. Thinking about it, the beggar duke in the casino also mentioned that name. He said his daughter had royal blood. Maria, seeing that he wasn't paying attention to the conversation, wondered and called, Bastian, are you listening to me? Bastian currently didn't care about the father-daughter pair of Odette anymore. Well, I'm too familiar with the tricks of those scammers who specialize in impersonating identities. He smiled and affirmed to Maria with certainty, there will definitely be nothing for you to worry about, thinking too much is just a waste of time. At the palace of the Bergs Empire. The woman looked at the secretly taken photos of Bastian and felt uncomfortable. What should we do about this matter? The person on the other side reassured. Calm down, madam, it's just a few photos. This woman wasn't happy, the wedding is coming up soon, but every night the girl looks at photos of another man. Do you really still think this is trivial? This woman was the Empress Bergs. The man next to her reassured, as you said, Isabel will get married sooner or later, no matter how much she admires Bastian, that fact will not change, and this person was none other than the Emperor Bergs. The Empress hugged her face sadly. Helene also had a fiancé, and disregarded everything to ruin her prearranged marriage for love. The Emperor stopped when he heard this. The Empress then realized that she had mentioned something that shouldn't be mentioned. So she quickly turned to reassure the Emperor, I'm sorry, I didn't intentionally offend the royal family, it's just that I'm afraid something similar to Princess Helene will happen. So, the Emperor understood the Empress, I know, madam. The Emperor crossed his arms and affirmed with certainty, but that will absolutely not happen, although Bastian is a wonderful man, he absolutely cannot be paired with the princess. Hearing these words from the Emperor, the Empress remembered the matter of Princess Helene. Are you really going to abandon Odette forever? The Emperor, hearing this, was startled and wondered, why are you suddenly mentioning Odette? The Empress mentioned the situation of Duke Desson. Duke Desson seems to be causing a lot of trouble. The Emperor understood with boredom, he's always like that, what's surprising? The Empress was very worried about Odette, he even sneaks into the casino. If this continues, what if something happens to Odette? The Emperor didn't seem to care much about Duke Desson. The only reason I've been taking care of them is because of Odette, other than your sister, I don't care if anything happens to him. The Empress also agreed with the Emperor's words, I really hate Duke Desson, but she denied one thing, but we can't just stand by and watch the precious daughter of Princess Helene suffer those misfortunes. The Emperor, hearing this, didn't say anything. The Empress immediately gave her opinion, therefore, I've been thinking. Wouldn't it be better to find a suitable marriage partner for Odette? Like Captain Closets, the Emperor couldn't help but be startled upon hearing this. Pointing to Bastian's picture on the table, Closets? You mean Bastian Closets? The Empress affirmed, yes, although his status is a bit low, he's a hero who has successfully led the Great War, and I think he's qualified to marry someone from the royal family. The Emperor was a little confused at this time, even if his blood is a bit lowly, he's still the son of the wealthiest family in the empire, a strapping young man like him can marry any low status noble wife, why does it have to be the daughter of Duke Desson? The Empress gave her opinion, even if the family is currently collapsing, Desson is still the duke of a long-standing family. Moreover, Odette also has royal blood. The Emperor was still a little hesitant, but the Empress didn't let the Emperor think and took his hand to persuade him, and this might be very good for Isabel. The Empress stated her main purpose: if Bastian Closets becomes a couple with her cousin, maybe she'll have no choice but to reconsider her feelings. The Emperor couldn't help but be surprised upon hearing this. Then the Empress kept whispering in the Emperor's ear, "You're the Emperor, he's just a small officer, you have enough power to control him like a puppet. Please let Bastian Closets and Odette get married to protect our Princess Isabel." In this world, marriage is an opportunity for commerce that could not be any more perfect. The huge fortune obtained from marriage with his mother, to the elevated status when remarried to the beloved daughter of a noble family. The lesson that his father, through 2 marriages, taught him himself. He had never been lenient, even in the royal family. Bastian's appearance was very attractive to everyone's eyes. At this time a duchess came to greet Bastian. "Long time no see, Lord Bastian. How do you feel when you hear the news of your beloved younger brother's engagement?" This duchess was Sandrine den Lavier, the only daughter of Duke Lavier, the wealthiest family in Pelia. And also Lucas's cousin. Bastian glanced at Sandrine and pondered, "Anyway, if I have to sell myself, then I have to make a transaction that brings the greatest profit." Thinking of this, Bastian greeted with a warm smile, "Of course, I will consider it an honor for my family." Sandrine, hearing this, also agreed with Bastian's words, "That's right, it's an honor for the Closets family, as if I don't know how much influence that has on you." Then Sandrine turned to call the waiter. Bastian observed Sandrine and thought, Sandrine den Lavier. A few years ago, she married and became the Countess Renaud, but due to many conflicts in the early stages of the marriage, she's preparing for a divorce, anyway. By next year, if nothing changes, she will return to being the beloved daughter of the Duke's family. After all, Lavier is a very powerful family. After entrusting it to the waiter, Sandrine turned to call, Bastian. Sandrine spoke up with hope, "I'm working hard to help you achieve the glory that can get closer. I believe that during that time you won't make any foolish mistakes just because you rashly made a mistake." Bastian, hearing this, also affirmed with Sandrine, "Of course, I will also try not to lose the trust in our relationship." However, suddenly, the light approached and bent down, whispering in Sandrine's ear to remind her, "Don't trust me too much. At the moment, the Lavier family is my first choice, but, you also know, the trend of the marriage market is always changing. Right?" Sandrine, hearing this, couldn't believe it and asked again, "Are you threatening me?" Bastian didn't affirm but gave a radiant smile, "Why would I? Just see it as a word of encouragement. I hope you find freedom as soon as possible, Countess." Sandrine, seeing his actions, also became helpless. Then she criticized his face. "That smiling face is too affectionate, sir, but the words you spit out have no affection at all." Bastian replied, "Oh, really?" While talking to Bastian, Sandrine noticed someone was coming in. Aha! She reminded Bastian, "Lady Closets is looking resentfully in this direction." Seeing her son standing here with the daughter of a prestigious duke's family, her heart must be boiling over. Bastian, hearing this, couldn't help but praise, "As expected, you're very perceptive." Sandrine also sighed helplessly, calculating to that extent, "You're admirable." Sandrine didn't want to talk to him anymore and was about to leave, affirming, "Around this time, I'm leaving, because today I also want to confirm how reliable we are." He listened politely and replied, "Yes, then we'll meet again next time." Watching Duchess Sandrine leave, made the other ladies discuss the relationship between Sandrine and Bastian. "Did you see it just now?" "Yes, the relationship between those two looks particularly unusual." "As expected, Countess Renaud's remarriage partner is Captain Closets?" The words of the two ladies were heard by Maria. Bastian didn't seem to like the atmosphere of this party, so he went outside. Standing, observing the surroundings, breathing in the air. Looking up, Bastian realized, thinking about it, that girl didn't cry until the very end. Clearly that beggar Duke won't easily fix his bad habits. It's like a decision for that girl's future. Not like me at all. Today, I paid attention to trivial matters twice. While thinking, Maria suddenly came out in surprise. "So you're here, Bastian." He turned to smile and say to Maria, "I'm taking a break. Being on the battlefield all the time, it takes quite a bit of time to adapt to parties." Maria's face darkened with worry. "Even so, why are you looking in that direction? That's not a good memory." Maria became hesitant. "You almost died on that beach." Back then, on the beach, wild wolves kept chasing. Bastian, with a wound on his shoulder, ran away from the wolves. While running, he ran out of road. In front was a cliff, below was a large river. Bastian turned around. He saw two wolves waiting in front of him. They opened their mouths wide and charged. Bastian became scared. Then he decided. to jump down, making the woman on this side witness it and be startled. Maria, who was young at the time, was curious when she saw something falling into the sea. What is it? Could someone have jumped into the sea? Maria was startled at this time, when she saw that the person in front of her was Bastian. After a while, Bastian was brought back to the mansion and was bandaged by the servant. Maria scolded, "While the boy is in this state, what the hell is the teacher like you doing?" The teacher quickly denied his mistake. It was an accident, sir. The young master was riding on the back of a horse, then it suddenly became agitated and ran away. I also tried my best to find the young master immediately after that. Maria angrily questioned, "Then where did those wild dogs come from? Did you not check if that was a safe place to learn?" The teacher was speechless. That. Maria was determined not to let this matter go easily. "I won't let this matter go easily. I will investigate clearly, then." Before Maria could finish her intentions, a man put his hand on her shoulder to advise, "Stop it, Maria. You heard the teacher, it was just an accident during learning." This man was Jeff Closets, Bastian's father. Maria was angry when she heard her brother say so casually as if nothing had happened, and shouted loudly, "Your son almost lost his life, and you're going to see it as simply an accident and let it go?" Jeff quickly gave a neat solution. "This matter will end here. I will fire that teacher. It was due to his negligent supervision." Maria didn't accept Jeff's easy decision. "Brother." Jeff went to the front of Bastian to ask, "Are you okay?" Bastian, when asked, looked up with cold eyes. Seeing his son still alive and well, Jeff was pleased and admired. "You're lucky too." Jeff's words from the position of a father scared Bastian. Maria on this side observed the situation of the two fathers and sons, and couldn't help but be disappointed with Jeff. "My brother is clearly not sober anymore. He said it was wild dogs biting, but the wounds on the boy's body are definitely not traces that appeared in just one day. I won't let Bastian live in this house any longer." While thinking, Maria clenched her hands and trembled with determination. "As soon as I made that decision, I contacted the boy's maternal family. The maternal family, the Illis, came and took the boy away just 1 week later. Although their greatest wish was for the little one to leave. I don't regret that decision. Because Bastian must survive, then he can think about revenge." Maria then spoke up with her own opinion. "In fact, I'm not completely satisfied with that divorced girl, although you can't call her that because she hasn't divorced successfully. But that girl, I can't deny that she's the ideal bride model that you need most. If the Lavier family is backing you, then clearly this will be a big threat to your father and son." Bastian, hearing this, felt comforted because Maria understood him. "Thank you for understanding me." Maria said so but still trusted Bastian very much. "But you can't give up all the remaining options because of that, because you always need to have a backup plan." Bastian, hearing this, fell into contemplation. "Backup plan?" Then he spoke up to affirm with Maria, "I will remember, Lady Gross." Returning to Odette's side, Tira was uncomfortable because she was exactly like her gambling addict father. "Why does my appearance have to be exactly like your father's?" The older woman sitting across from Odette sipped her teacup. "Also, I'm glad that at least that guy did something useful for his child. I'm talking about the guy who upset the entire empire with his face." This older woman was Countess Trier, the emperor's cousin. The countess wondered, "Where's Duke Dessen?" Odette bowed her head and replied, "Father went out, maybe he'll be late." The countess, hearing this, couldn't help but feel lucky. "Fortunately, I didn't meet that pathetic person." At this time, Odette noticed something. She took the initiative to ask, "Then what's the purpose of the lady's visit?" The countess put down her teacup and affirmed, "Yes. I came to tell you about the marriage. The royal family has chosen a groom for you." Odette was surprised to hear this. "What?" She sat up and didn't want to. "Why are you suddenly mentioning marriage?" The countess didn't want to beat around the bush, so she said straight, "I don't like to talk around and waste time, so I'll get straight to the point. The emperor wants Odette, you have to marry, to Bastian Closets." Odette was shocked to hear those words. Then she became curious. Why would His Majesty suddenly? The countess truthfully told Odette the reason, because the emperor's eldest daughter, Isabel, is in love with Bastian, but he's a commoner with lowly blood. Completely unable to become the partner of the princess, Odette felt even more uncomfortable hearing this. But without revealing her attitude, she sat down calmly. In a place where no one could see, Odette clenched her fist with great resentment. Then she spoke her mind frankly. "So His Majesty wants to take advantage of me?" The countess was very satisfied when she saw Odette understood so quickly. "Fortunately, you're not a stupid child. That's right, if you and he get married, it can make Isabel break up quickly. But according to news from the noble class, Bastian doesn't seem to have any feelings for Princess Isabel. This is also your luck. The Countess was a little satisfied, honestly. Although he doesn't have a title, Closets is still a knowledgeable family. After running a profitable business industry for many generations, now that family has risen to the ranks of the wealthy and is known as the railway king of the empire. Although remarried, Closets married the daughter of a prestigious noble family. In fact, he has been recognized as a member of the upper class. However, the stationmaster Bastian Closets, the son of the First Lady, is an exception. Everyone knows about the lowly blood on his maternal side. Of course, the maternal family, the Illis, is also very wealthy, but that's wealth accumulated from trading antiques from the slums. There are also rumors that they are holding all the monetary blood of the world. Thanks to this, the nobles have given the grandson they raised a title, the trash grandson. But it seems that this child doesn't know about the rumors in the noble class. The Countess affirmed one thing to Odette: Bastian is not a bad groom. It seems that he's not valued by his father, so he can't become the heir, but he's a talented naval officer to the point of being touted as the hero of the empire. If he's lucky, he'll be promoted to naval admiral. To be honest, he doesn't completely want to become your father's son-in-law. Odette had been listening silently all this time. Then she suddenly offered, if so, can the Countess convey my wishes to His Majesty? The Countess was startled to hear this. She loudly scolded, what do you mean? Do you think this marriage is the Emperor asking you for a favor? This is not a request, but an order, Odette. Odette spoke up to argue, why should I obey such an unreasonable request? The Countess quickly gave an argument that made Odette speechless. Because you are the daughter of Duke Desson and Princess Helene, do you still not understand? Odette's face changed when she heard this. His Majesty the Emperor wants me to bear the debt of my parents' past sins? The Countess said, then sighed helplessly. She slowly stood up to remind, and, Odette. In my opinion, this is a precious opportunity that I have brought you. You will not be able to find a better husband than this for the rest of your life. Odette heard this but still had her own opinion. But I have never once tried to think about getting married. The Countess gently approached to persuade, I understand, you say that just because you grew up with a father like that. The Countess wanted to make Odette understand one thing. Do you want to follow and clean up your father's mess, and live your whole life with an appearance that is not even as good as a maid? Odette was still a little hesitant, but Countess, I. The Countess stroked Odette's cheek, gently and tenderly advising, why don't you give it a try, you never know. Bastian Closets might just be the type of man to be dazzled by a pretty face. At Bastian's private residence, Butler Lovis greeted him, you're back, master. The dinner party lasted longer than I expected, Bastian explained, these days, everyone is focused on politics. To achieve my goals, I have to maintain good relationships. Since I'll be wearing the uniform for a few more years, the butler felt that Bastian carried a heavy burden. Come to think of it, you've already worked so hard. Standing in front of the room, the butler opened the door. After they both entered, the butler announced, oh, that's right, Miss Odette sent you a letter. Bastian was a little confused when he heard that, Miss Odette? The butler explained the identity of the person, she's the niece that His Majesty the Emperor introduced. Bastian's face darkened when he heard this, ah, that young lady. The butler took Bastian's coat and announced, as usual, I placed the letter on the desk. Bastian said, you've worked hard, go rest. The butler immediately obeyed and left, yes, master. Bastian pondered, waiting for the lady to contact me first is the politeness of the nobility. But I was hoping that side would refuse first and never contact me, looking at the letter on the desk. Making Bastian visibly uncomfortable, it seems this damn marriage must really be carried out. A few days ago, the Marquis summoned Bastian to announce, I called you here because there is an order that needs to be conveyed to you. As you know, His Majesty the Emperor considers me a close friend, so I think he gave me this important task. This is Marquis Demel, Admiral of the Navy. The Marquis asked Bastian curiously, you know Princess Helene, the Emperor's sister, who was previously expelled from the royal family, right? He simply replied, yes. The Marquis conveyed the Emperor's intention, His Majesty wants to introduce you to the daughter of Princess Helene. Bastian was startled when he heard this, did you just say this is an imperial order? The Marquis closed his eyes and confirmed, yes, His Majesty wants you to marry Miss Odette, the daughter of Princess Helene. Those words of the Marquis shook Bastian. Back to the present, he had showered. Then threw the towel away. Sat down uncomfortably, how could the Emperor do such a ridiculous thing? He frowned, remembering the princess, it's clearly because of Princess Isabel, that troublesome brat. Knowing he couldn't do anything. Even if he is the emperor, he can't force me to marry. But this is inherently a military order. I can't ruin what I've built up until now just because of this marriage. After resting, he picked up the letter on the desk. Then looking around, he thought, after showing enough sincerity to save face for the emperor, I have to rearrange everything. According to the current situation, the best way is. The person who wrote this letter is Odette Theresa Marie Charlotte von Dissen. Seeing the full name on the letter surprised Bastian. He smirked with interest. Miss Odette. What a girl with a memorable name. Back to Odette's side, Tira reported, I put your letter on the desk, sister. Thank you, Tira. Odette received the letter. And opened it to read, I agree with Miss Odette's opinion. 2 p.m. this Wednesday, I will reserve a waiting room at the Rienfield Hotel on Prive Avenue. After reading the letter, Odette was surprised. Really? Odette's eyes darkened with discomfort. What a rude man. To show that the letter was formal, I introduced myself fully, but the reply was only 3 short lines, not even wanting to write the name, just the initials. She sighed, feeling helpless and frustrated. Odette was really a little curious about her future husband. What kind of person is Bastian Closets? Even the reply letter is like this, I have a bad feeling, but. Suddenly she remembered the words the Countess had said earlier, are you treating this marriage as a request from the Emperor? This is not a request, but an order, Odette. Odette felt that those words were no different from threatening her. She looked at the only beautiful dress on the wall, thinking, besides obeying the Emperor's orders for the subsidy, I have no other choice. I didn't expect to wear the dress my mother left behind in a situation like this. First, I have to meet and talk to this person before the Royal Palace Dance Festival. At the Royal Palace. Lucas was wearing boots with a feeling of fatigue. When will these troublesome things end? Lucas kept complaining, I have to study at this old man's academy every day. I've already been reassigned to headquarters, but I'm still in charge of etiquette education. It's too much. Bastian quickly offered a solution for Lucas, if you're dissatisfied, why don't you sign up to return to the naval battle team? Lucas replied gloomily, I kicked away the position Dad gave me like that. Do you think he'll leave me alone? I even abandoned the mission and followed you unconditionally. Lucas then realized something, what are you trying to say? Anyway, it seems my dad is very satisfied with you. He once said he wanted to have another drink with you. What do you say? Bastian, while adjusting his clothes, replied happily, if your dad invited me, it would be an honor. Lucas really admired Bastian a bit, after all, it's really admirable, because you have the innate ability to please those old-timers. Give me the secret. Bastian heard this. He just smirked, the hunting dog protects the son. For Count Ewald, I'll be used for those things. At that moment, Lucas was knocked down by a group of bullies. They scorned and criticized, the master of the Ewald family is so weak. I heard that the people in your family are famous naval officers? Then one of them grabbed Lucas' hair and lifted him up, asking, but you're just a child who was picked up, right? Someone stopped the guy who was bullying Lucas. Those words were too much. The guy was startled when he heard that. He turned around uncomfortably and asked, who the hell are you? But before he could finish speaking, he was punched and fell to the ground. Another guy was scared and kept backing away, stammering, you. Seeing the bully in front of him being punched repeatedly shocked Lucas. Dusk arrived. Lucas followed behind Bastian, calling, hey, you. Thank you, you. It's Bastian, right? Bastian turned around coldly when he heard that. Lucas introduced himself, I'm Lucas von Ewald. Bastian was pleased that Lucas approached him, seeing that his goal had been achieved. The timid son of Count Ewald is indeed a blessing that has come to me. The deep friendship with the Ewald family, the solid relationship built from that wish, has boosted my position and prestige in the Navy by a notch. If it's with that fake certificate. Even if I act like a hunting dog, it's not bad. Lucas was curious, seeing Bastian preparing so carefully, so you're going to meet that girl now? Perhaps Sandrine's marriage will be arranged next year. Do you really intend to accept this marriage? If Sandrine knows about this, she'll cause a ruckus. Bastian replied cheerfully, I must handle the next meeting well. Because it's an imperial order, I have no choice. Lucas reminded Bastian with good intentions, even so, you should be careful not to get caught. You also know that even with a noble lineage, this will not be good with a woman like that. Bastian simply replied indifferently, okay. Princess Helene will marry Crown Prince Belov and leave Berg. Just try to reconcile with this terrible marriage until then. If I show that sincerity, the emperor will not insist on forcing the marriage. Then, after divorcing, I will marry Sandrine when she has finished dealing with her personal affairs. Nothing will hinder the schedule. I can't get caught up in something like this and ruin my plans. If only Miss Odette were a smart lady, that would be great. At the waiting lounge of a coffee shop, Odette looked at the clock. It's been an hour past the appointment time. She just sat there waiting. Then thinking, is the person who wrote the letter not coming? Ever since I received this letter, I clearly had an ominous feeling, but... At this moment, a man in uniform entered through the door, and the staff greeted him, "Welcome, Captain Closets, I will escort you to the reserved table." Seeing that person, Odette confirmed, "He's finally here." That person approached, making Odette shocked and stunned. "Huh?" Odette was a little incredulous. "No way. It can't be." Odette immediately remembered that despicable gambler back then is the hero of the empire. Bastian was also shocked and couldn't believe it when he saw Odette. "She's the marriage partner?" The two looked at each other for a moment without saying anything. At this time, the staff asked curiously, "Is there a problem?" Bastian thought he had come to the wrong place. "I don't know if there was a mistake in the reservation." "Please check again." The staff helplessly confirmed, "This is exactly the table Captain reserved. The young lady has been waiting for you for more than an hour. Please take a seat." Bastian didn't know how to refute. Then fell into contemplation, the beggar duke of the casino. If all the boasts of that impostor are really true, then the current situation completely coincides. Looking at Odette, Bastian confirmed, "It's the bet money from that night. It's her." Thinking, Bastian smirked. Seeing that smile made Odette afraid. Bastian took off his hat and introduced himself, "I am Bastian Closets. Perhaps this is not the first time we have met, is it, Miss Odette?" After the two were seated, Odette poured tea for him. Then asked with a grave face, "You knew everything from the beginning, didn't you?" Bastian took the cup of tea and denied, "I wouldn't dare, Miss Odette." Bastian wasn't sure before if that person was Odette. "It's a pity, my imagination isn't so outstanding as to think that the father who bet and sold his daughter at a back-alley casino was that gentleman Duke, and the daughter who was bet in that place was the granddaughter of His Majesty the Emperor." Odette was startled after hearing that. Then fell into contemplation. "Actually, I knew from the moment we first met that Bastian Closets was despising me, and he had no intention of accepting this marriage. However, I feel the same way." Thinking this, Odette clenched her fist. Then proposed to Bastian, "Please tell His Majesty that I am not happy with this marriage. Please reject me, Captain." Seeing Odette's attitude, Bastian had to look with different eyes. Then put the teacup down. Then refused, "I'm sorry, miss, but I have no intention of rejecting you, Miss Odette." Bastian recalled his first meeting with Odette. He was quite surprised that Odette was still the same, nothing had changed, and Bastian thought to himself, she was still exactly like that night. In the flashback, Odette loudly scolded Bastian, "Aren't you ashamed?" Odette coldly and loudly scolded Bastian with anger. What kind of soldier is involved in gambling and betting? While reminiscing, Bastian wondered why Odette was so strangely calm. If others were in such a situation they would only kneel down and beg, but she still looked dignified and calm. Interspersed with Bastian's thoughts was Odette's scolding of him from gambling to trafficking. "Don't you know that trafficking is illegal?" Bastian was still immersed in his own thoughts. He was very curious about Odette's attitude when she had nothing in hand. She had no power at all. Could it be because she carried noble blood that she tried to appear so proud? In Bastian's memory, Odette was very cold, serious, and decisive. "Please reject me, Captain." Bastian smiled arrogantly in his heart. He thought, even if she lived at the bottom of society, it seemed that the young lady's personality was imprinted in her blood. Inside, Bastian secretly assessed Odette. Outside, he politely asked her about the recent rumors with sarcastic and mocking intentions. "Do you know about the rumors about the Dyson family?" Odette frowned slightly. Odette's face sank, her voice was somewhat lacking in confidence. "I know." Bastian crossed his arms, looked at her, and said with a mocking and sarcastic tone, "So why do you think I still came here even though I know everything?" Suddenly Odette raised her face, her sharp eyes with anger mixed in. "Please get straight to the point, Captain." Bastian's voice became more serious, no longer with the mockery as before. His eyes were also more serious. "Right now, I am trying my best to show my loyalty to the Emperor." Odette felt flustered by Bastian's seriousness. He no longer had the teasing and sarcastic look as before, but instead a serious and decisive look. This made Odette feel worried. So that means, you will accept this marriage? Bastian crossed his arms and looked at Odette, smiling smugly. Unfortunately, I think it will be difficult for both of us to get married, so why don't we put on a show for each other until Princess Isabel gets engaged? Hearing Bastian say that she had to act to fool the emperor and everyone, Odette was startled, her eyes widened and filled with panic. Act? You mean deceiving the royal family? Bastian's eyes turned cold a few degrees. He said in a cold voice, even if it's just a play, we still have to look like a couple about to get married. Odette couldn't keep her composure when she heard him say that. Her eyes widened. Bastian continued, that's what the emperor wants. The atmosphere in the room dropped. Bastian crossed his arms and said with a helpless voice, as you can see, I am a naval officer, and the emperor controls the army of this empire. So if he is ordered, I have to obey, Miss Odette. Odette closed her eyes and frowned slightly. She knew that she was just a shield. I'm just a shield to protect the princess. I had already realized this when I came here. Odette thought and hesitated about something, but, then she asked Bastian in a soft voice, don't you think that the rumors will affect my reputation in the meantime? Bastian casually raised his hand and replied, I don't care, I'm not a polite gentleman or anything. Bastian's voice was teasing, making Odette so shocked that her eyes widened and her mouth opened slightly. Or it can be understood that I don't care about those gossips. Then Bastian rested his hand on his chin, looking mysterious and smiling, so I think you should make a decision. Bastian started using a sarcastic voice mixed with a bit of banter to talk to Odette. Compared to a naval officer like me, the emperor will surely value the opinion of his beloved granddaughter more. Bastian's words made Odette's mood drop. Her face became gloomier when she heard Bastian's words. Isn't that so? Odette was silent and did not respond to Bastian. She just sat still, while Bastian still rested his hand on his chin and felt very excited. Bastian's blue eyes narrowed slightly. He began to think. Bastian suspected that Odette was trying to approach him for some reason. If that were true, she could have rejected this marriage from the beginning. This woman must have some purpose for coming here. After feeling that Odette didn't want to act with him, Bastian took the hat on the table, intending to leave. His heart thought, I don't want to waste any more time. If you don't want to, then let's end everything here. When Bastian turned around to leave, Odette suddenly realized. Odette hurriedly ran after Bastian. Please wait a moment. Bastian turned his head when he heard Odette calling. Odette gave him a white envelope. The scene became strangely quiet. Bastian looked directly at Odette in surprise. The two looked at each other for a moment. Bastian was surprised and thought to himself, it's an envelope with money? He quickly asked Odette, are you going to pay for the tea? Odette was so embarrassed that her cheeks turned pink. She was still holding the envelope in her hand. Yes, I don't want to skip out on the captain's tea money. Odette shyly handed Bastian the envelope, her cheeks flushed pink. Bastian didn't say anything, he just smiled slightly. Then he laughed out loud. Odette felt extremely surprised at Bastian's attitude. However, he refused and instructed, keep that money. He said to her in a sarcastic tone, giving more money to the Duke so he can gamble is quite good, so I won't have to see you there again. She didn't understand what Bastian was saying. What do you mean? Bastian said in a cold and contemptuous tone about her father selling her to him. You should feel lucky that he sold you to me that day. There's no guarantee that you'll be so lucky next time. Hearing Bastian say that, Odette was shocked and couldn't believe it. Odette realized Bastian's sarcastic attitude towards her. That man is looking down on me. Odette quietly thought about the plan that Bastian had said, pretend to be engaged until the princess gets married. That plan of his will surely succeed. Odette was still afraid and not ready to face the current situation, but the sunset gradually descended behind the houses. Odette silently walked home with tired steps. She sighed after what had happened. Today was really terrible. And she was immersed in her thoughts. Actually, I don't want to see his face again, but no matter how hard I try, I have no other choice. Suddenly there were loud arguments coming out, causing her to return to reality. You still won't let it go? I don't want to. Odette realized that the sound was coming from her house, from my house. Could it be? She quickly ran back and opened the door. Odette quickly ran to and opened the door of her house. Inside, her younger sister was hugging the savings that she and her younger sister had kept. Next to her was her gambling-addicted father who intended to steal that money to gamble. This is the emergency fund that my sister and I have worked hard to save. Her father angrily raised his hand to hit her sister. You insolent little thing. Seeing this, Odette shouted her sister's name, Tira. She ran to take a slap from her father for Tira. Dessen was shocked to see this. He said loudly, Odette. Tira trembled and asked Odette, Sister, are you okay? Her father trembled and asked, why you? Odette coldly glared and warned her father, never, lay a hand on Tira again. Odette's eyes turned cold as she looked at her father, if it happens again, I won't let you off. Her father was scared but still challenged her loudly, what, won't let me off? What are you going to do to me? Odette walked closer to him and warned, if this happens again. Odette threatened her father, I will make your biggest fear come true. The father angrily said with a strained voice, are you threatening your father? Odette bluntly said, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't receive a single subsidy from the royal palace, I believe you know that, right? Count Descent frowned in fear, while Odette still did not change her attitude and looked at him coldly. Her father angrily left, you vicious brat. Odette stood still silently, while Tira broke down and cried. She quietly thought, I know I'm his weakness, as long as he still receives the subsidy, he won't intend to let me go, because I'm his only connection to the royal family. Odette pitied Tira, although we don't have the same mother, I still love Tira very much. She was determined to protect her life, and she also didn't want to lose the life that she had always tried to protect. Odette told herself not to be weak, not to become soft, as long as I can protect what I cherish, I will endure everything. She was willing to endure everything to protect everything. Whether it was her father or anyone else, she was willing to endure it, even if it was her father. Or even that play to blind the princess. At Bastian's mansion. The butler frantically looked for Bastian, Master, you're here, what's wrong, Lovis? Lovis took out a blue envelope, an invitation to the queen's birthday party has been sent. He felt very happy for Bastian to be invited to the party at the royal palace, if the mistress in the other world knew, she would be very happy. Bastian silently thought, they invited me just to confirm the progress of the marriage. Holding the invitation in his hand, Bastian couldn't help but exclaim, not too bad. He looked up at the sky, a royal party. He remembered the story of meeting Odette that afternoon, yes, I don't want to skip out on the captain's tea money. Suddenly smiled. The butler felt surprised, Master must be very happy inside. He felt very much looking forward to it, I'm really looking forward to it. Bastian smiled and thought, I wonder what she will look like at the party. At the royal palace in the carriage, there was a man crossing his arms and looking out the door. He was surprised and thought, that's the Duke Gerhard's carriage. Bastian's father happily said, finally, today I can meet the best aristocrat of the empire. Franz Klaus wondered, what do you mean, Franz Klaus, Bastian's half-brother? Bastian's father asked Franz Klaus sternly, Duke Gerhard, you've been studying together for so long, but you're not close? Franz Klaus replied, even if we go to school together, we can't become friends, Dad. Before what Franz said, the father felt extremely angry, moreover, Duke Gerhard, that man wasn't very close to Mom, and the school year is different from yours. Bastian's father angrily thought, I spent so much money so you could enroll in a prestigious private school, Franz, a kid who has good grades, but not just about studying. He clicked his tongue irritably, I couldn't fit into the world of children who pursue meaningless concepts like art or philosophy. Franz Klaus's mother saw this and spoke up, thinking about it, the Duke Decent's daughter will also attend the dance this time, right? He showed a contemptuous expression and said, what Duke? Because he's educated, he can be considered an aristocrat, but his circumstances are no different from those loafers. Franz Klaus's mother smiled and said, anyway, there's nothing wrong with meeting someone with royal blood, isn't it time for Bastian to get married? Bastian's father agreed with Franz Klaus's mother. That's right, but why get involved with the daughter of that family? Franz Klaus's mother's eyes became sharp, the Klaus family has been accepted as a member of the aristocracy, it is thanks to our continuous efforts. Of course, that qualification is limited to my husband and I and Franz, in ancient aristocratic society, Bastian with lowly blood cannot be accepted. She felt that Bastian was a big obstacle, but Bastian, now he has crawled up here, how to get Jeff, I just cleared the old wife's name like shackles that hinder his path. Unwilling when Bastian becomes famous. Franz Klaus suddenly spoke, but isn't that a dishonorable thing for us? He's also a member of the Klaus family. His mother spoke to him not to worry, Franz, no one can see Bastian's bride as a member of our family, that child after leaving Arden at the age of 12 lived at her mother's house. Franz Klaus was about to say something, but his father spoke, you and Mom are right, Franz. He advised him not to worry about anything, you just need to worry about your future, moreover, your brother will also attend today's dance. Franz has to shoulder the responsibility of the family successor, so show me what you can do under the name of the Klaus family successor. Franz narrowed his eyes thinking about Bastian. Then he obeyed his father and didn't say anything more. Yes, father. Royal University Hall. Captain Klaus has arrived. Franz Klaus was biting his nails and thinking excitedly, I was so excited that I thought I would run here. He felt jealous of Bastian. Anyway, in everything he always shows that he's good, he only appears right before the dance starts. But very quickly he changed his attitude. Even so, to exchange for hunting people, you have to eat meat first. What a mediocre beast. Does he realize that now? The world that I and he live in is so different. Despising his brother's identity. Suddenly someone shouted and ran to Bastian, Captain Klaus. When they saw Bastian coming, everyone ran around him. Come on. They admired and surrounded Bastian. It's hard to see you once. Can you come to my private party next time? Hey, I promised that Captain Klaus would attend my party first. What's going on? They took turns talking to him. Franz was shocked to see this. High-ranking aristocrats, even the royal family know him? A girl appeared from somewhere and asked Franz Omo, is that person close to Duke Gerhard? Ella von Klein, Franz's fiancée. However, he was still shocked by what had just happened and didn't pay attention to his fiancée. Really? Is CAE Matthias von Gerhard here? No, it can't be. He was even more shocked when he saw a noble figure with a high position shaking hands with Bastian. Bastian glanced and saw Franz sulking. He strode to him and greeted him. Hello, Franz. There's also Miss Klein, it's nice to see you again. Klein happily replied, hello, it feels so strange to meet the captain at the royal palace like this. Suddenly Franz spoke, despising Bastian. How do you feel when you finally set foot in the royal palace? Bastian's eyes were no longer like before, they became sharper. But very quickly he regained his cheerful expression. I am very grateful and honored for my life, but even so, when answering Franz, he did not hesitate to despise him in return. I mean like you once did. Franz was stunned by Bastian's response, like I once did? He was afraid and didn't know how to answer. Is he mocking me? How should I answer? The palace servant spoke, the Duke Deason's daughter has arrived. Franz suddenly changed his attitude. He felt happy when he saw Odette appear. She's finally here. If his fiancée has problems, it will naturally ruin this dance. Countess Trier stepped in first, behind her was Odette. But before he could be happy, he was surprised. Huh? Odette's small but seductive shoulders appeared behind the countess. Franz's eyes widened. Franz couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Odette. No, it can't be like that. Clearly. He couldn't believe his eyes. Odette was far from his imagination. Is this the rotten meat that the emperor threw away? Franz exclaimed in his heart, so beautiful? He felt so scared and shocked that his mouth opened. His image now looked so terrible. Bastian walked past him. He gently strode to Odette in a gorgeous outfit. Odette coldly looked at him without saying anything. Bastian was the same. He stared at Odette for a moment. Then he raised his hand and bowed politely, inviting Odette. Let's go, Lady Odette. Outside the castle, in the sky the stars sparkled brightly. Inside the castle was the image of musicians performing. The nobles were inviting each other to dance to the music. At the head position, the emperor and queen were side by side. The queen looked at the scene in front of her with great joy. Franz was dancing with his fiancée. His eyes were still full of panic and surprise. On this side, Bastian and Odette were dancing together. The two created a very beautiful scene. Bastian said softly, I thought you wouldn't come to the dance today. I was worried for nothing. Odette replied, for me, Huang Myung is very important. Bastian still did not give up the idea of wanting her to act with him. If so, can you join me in this play? Odette silently turned her face away without saying anything. Her eyes hesitated. Seeing Odette hesitate, he thought that after tonight, the reputation of this woman would be ruined and there would be no way to save it. Even knowing that, she still came to the ball. Suddenly Bastian pulled Odette's hand hard. In Bastian's heart he was feeling that Odette was a girl who only knew how to take advantage. Indeed, she wants to benefit from the emperor. Odette suddenly lost her balance. Huh? Bastian quickly supported her. He thought, because there is a purpose to take advantage of each other. He leaned close to Odette and said, then let me know if you agree or not. I will tell you exactly how to please the emperor. The scene shifted to outside the hallway. At this time Odette was walking with Countess Trier. She turned around and said to Odette, don't forget that the future of the Dessen family depends on the success of this matter. Odette seriously replied, I know, I will do what the emperor wants. Instead, you must keep your promise to persuade the emperor, hoping that even if this marriage is unsuccessful, the subsidies for me will not be cut off. The woman calmly replied to her, the emperor, even if cruel, is not so despicable. If Isabella regains consciousness thanks to this marriage, then you can do whatever you want. Thank you, Countess. When Odette left, the Countess sighed, so pathetic. She felt sorry for this poor little girl. Even though she is pretending to be calm, she will be in chaos if she is suddenly pulled into such a strange world. Although I brought this child to the ball, but seeing her being sold for money. While walking, Odette suddenly stopped and turned to look at the garden of flowers in bloom. Then she suddenly remembered the words her mother said, "The garden of the palace is full of flowers," just like Mom always said. Odette remembered every time her mother told her about the palace. When Mom told me about the palace, she was always strangely excited. She remembered her mother telling her with enthusiasm. She just kept going like that and finally she would cry and sit down. Odette remembered what her mother had gone through. When she remembered the days in the palace, she burst into tears. Her mother cried in pain. She wondered why her mother was like that. Why love if you will regret it? Is love everything? She wished that she should not have chosen her father, should not have betrayed her country and family for a man like her father. Odette also blamed her mother that if she had chosen, she should have accepted the consequences of the path she had chosen. If you chose wrong, you should at least humbly accept the consequences. Odette recalled her mother and what she had to go through in the past, but Mom always only pursued illusions. The love has passed, and the past cannot be returned when love is lost. Like a tourist in the desert who is fascinated by mirages, the mother has lived a thirsty life. Back in the palace corridor, at this time Odette had arrived with the Countess in front of the door of the ballroom. The daughter of the Duc d'Essen has arrived, Odette promised herself, I will never live a life like that. Odette strode into the hall. Life is very important. She just kept following the Countess. I know how important money is as a foundation, although I don't intend to sell my honor and self-respect to earn money, but... Then she saw Bastian standing and waiting for her. Honor and self-respect are not priorities in this life either. That's how I maintain my dignity and respect. Bastian bowed and held out his hand to support her. Let's go, Miss Odette. Odette was still immersed in her thoughts. My subsidy is betting on this marriage. Even though I know he despises me. Yes, Captain, the reason for me to act with this man is enough. Suddenly Bastian leaned close to Odette's lips. So I can consider that you have agreed? We must show it clearly, so that the Emperor can be satisfied. Odette saw Bastian put his face so close to her. She immediately closed her eyes tightly, her cheeks turned red with embarrassment. She turned her head away, leaving Bastian stunned. Bastian pursed his lips tightly. The two turned around and saw someone in the distance looking at them. Don't reveal that we are acting too much, because our most important guest is watching. On the railing of the banquet hall, a blonde woman was drinking wine. Her eyes were full of hatred looking down, Isabelle. Seeing this, Odette was silent, her eyes were a little sad. She grasped Bastian's hand tightly. Then continued to dance with him. Bastian lowered his eyes and looked at Odette, praising, even so. Your dress and jewelry are very beautiful. Odette thanked Bastian on the surface. Thank you for the compliment, Captain. What is he going to say again? But in her heart she was quite uncomfortable. Bastian smiled and asked Odette, after tonight, will you return them? Causing her to be startled. Odette was silent. She looked at Bastian thinking, I've heard of Bastian a lot, but Odette felt quite surprised that he spoke so impolitely. I heard that this man became an officer after graduating from the prestigious History Department of the Royal Military Academy. He understands the etiquette of the aristocracy more than any aristocrat, so speaking disrespectful words. She remembered the scene when she first met Bastian. Indeed, it was because he saw my appearance at the bottom of society at the casino. Odette pursed her lips thinking, if there is nothing to hide. I'd rather be upright and upright. She faced and looked straight at Bastian and replied, yes, because this is something I rented for one night, and then I have to return it. Bastian was surprised by Odette's words, but don't worry too much, because I still have extra money to do other things. Bastian mocked Odette. Miss Odette is a richer woman than I thought. Odette also responded, that's thanks to the captain's care. Captain Bastian was surprised by the care. Odette smiled brightly like a flower. Yes, because I benefited a lot from the tea money. She happily said, thanks to that, until this play is over, I don't have to worry about this set of gems and this dress anymore. Odette happily smiled, her mood was very comfortable. Bastian suddenly laughed, making Odette a little bewildered. He teased Odette, do you know, this is the first time I've seen you smile? Odette frowned, I'm just trying to finish the play and not let everyone find out. Odette and Bastian were dancing and talking. It's good that the tea money is spent on something more valuable than the Duke's gambling, because that's the money I got from paying off the captain's debt, so it must also be used for things that benefit you. Bastian teased Odette, if so, I must treat you to a lavish meal next time, so that the lady can save more money. Odette also teased back, sorry, but I would like to decline that offer. Bastian asked why. Odette replied, because it is difficult for me with debts beyond my ability to pay. I can't imagine a woman being sold to pay off debts. Bastian joked. Odette's sharp eyes glanced at Bastian, I don't know either, from the day I first met the captain, you didn't give me any trust. Bastian's eyes sank. Bastian and Odette were dancing together, although the nobles were so rigid. He looked at Odette in front of him and exclaimed, but Miss Odette doesn't give in to anyone. Bastian looked at Odette's neck, she is really a woman with a long and straight neck. If that neck. Suddenly the whole hall was in turmoil. Bastian and Odette turned around when they saw this. Isabel was angrily walking down, Princess Isabel. Her eyes were full of resentment and hatred. Isabel was angrily walking down with a heroic spirit, a noble next to her asked, Princess, are you okay? The people around started to discuss, it seems she's drunk, shouldn't we call a servant here? She walked quickly to where Odette and Bastian were standing. Then glared angrily. Seeing this look, Odette had a premonition that something bad was going to happen. Suddenly Isabel raised her hand and slapped Odette hard. She screamed angrily and cursed, stay away from Bastian, you beggar. She started to think crazily, so Mom allowed me to attend the ball because she wanted me to see this. She stood and watched Bastian and Odette dance together, I've been hurt, so I don't have any regrets for Bastian anymore. Thinking, she angrily put the glass of wine down hard, but if you follow Bastian for the past 6 years, you can understand. She glared and gnashed her teeth angrily, that Bastian is only following the imperial order, not because he likes that woman, so that's why. Seeing the scene between Odette and Bastian, she became even more angry, the daughter of the war hero with a low lineage and an abandoned princess, right, this exciting combination deserves the attention of society, enough to put an end to the strange rumors about me. She felt pain when she saw Bastian having to marry Odette, but must Bastian's heart listen to the unfair treatment just because he listened to the imperial order? Her tears started to fall, that pain surged higher, Bastian is so pitiful. Isabel became crazy, only I understand Bastian's heart. She ran and thought crazily, even though he loves me, he can't express that true feeling, because he is a loyal person to the point of being foolish. Bastian, you decided to sacrifice yourself for me, didn't you? Why force yourself to face and dance with that ugly woman? Just because of the royal family's opposition to the level of status. She lost control and rushed forward, did you abandon the feelings for me? Seeing Odette, she lost even more control, just for money to get into that position, that woman. Isabel angrily glared at Odette, how can you understand the heart of the poor Bastian? Losing her mind before what was happening, she became crazy and could not control herself and went to hit Odette, stay away from Bastian, you beggar. Odette fell to the ground by the slap of that woman. Isabel started to curse, Odette's necklace was also broken, I know you are doing this to get out of the miserable life. She cursed more and more crazily, you stay away from him, you have no self-respect. Being said that by her, Odette was so shocked that her eyes widened, you have no self-respect. Bastian stood shielding Odette. His voice was serious, please calm down, your highness. Seeing him shield her, Isabel became even more crazy, Bastian, that woman is charming you for money, just like. She used vulgar words to say that Odette was no different from a high-class prostitute. Odette was said that, she was silent. The princess was blinded by unrequited love and jealousy, so she wants to lower me with those ordinary words. That princess doesn't know how I've lived, thanks to your words, I know how to protect my heart more. Odette calmly picked up each pearl that the princess had broken, to be honest, there is no heartache at all, moreover, now I am only acting according to the king's orders. Before this action of Odette, everyone was surprised. Isabel saw that and got even more emboldened, now you look, Bastian, she is only fascinated by that jewelry, isn't that so? You borrowed it, right, you're a greedy beggar. Odette didn't say anything and turned to glare at her. Seeing this attitude of Odette, Isabel widened her eyes in surprise. But however, Odette didn't even bother to pay attention to her, she turned away sharply. Then Odette went to a nearby servant and asked, please help me keep it until the end of the dance, yes. The princess saw Odette like that, the anger in her body burned even more, dare to disregard my words? Suddenly an arm stopped her, princess. It was Bastian, you're drunk. The princess saw him and was infatuated, her cheeks turned pink, Bastian. She became infatuated looking at the eyes that were looking at me tenderly. Indeed, he loves me, I love you. I love you so much, Bastian. No longer able to keep her composure, she leaned into and hugged Bastian. The smell of alcohol, please calm down. Princess Bastion couldn't stand the strong smell of alcohol from her, so he gently reminded her. The queen, when she saw this scene, couldn't keep her composure and slumped down. Isabel. You must. The emperor jumped up. Queen. Quickly bring a doctor here. Franz's mother was afraid that this would involve them. Don't let our house be at odds because of this. Everyone was discussing in an uproar. It would be better if Queen Helen helped. At least I wouldn't do anything so embarrassing like this. They wondered why Odette's mother would be so infatuated with someone lower than her. Is that all? I heard that Duke Dissen is an aristocrat. Why is the Princess of Berk so blind to a mean man like that? It's true. Anyway, Captain Klaus still has more influence on his ability and finance. The Countess felt worried for Odette when everyone was talking about her mother Odette. Odette sank. The princess was still causing trouble. Don't hide your feelings for me anymore, Bastion. Bastion said coldly. Then he pushed Isabel's hand away forcefully. He glared at her. She was stunned and confused by his actions. Isabel felt confused and disoriented. Why? Are you going to continue avoiding me? I'm like this. Someone loudly called her, Isabel. It was her brother. He reminded her and dragged her away. You're too drunk. Let's go, brother. But she was still crazy in her fantasy. No, I don't want to. Bastion, answer me. You love me too, right? Let go. Bastion is waiting for me. She was dragged away in a frenzy. Please wake up, Isabel. Bastion turned around to look at Odette. He gently asked her. Odette's face had become silent. Are you okay, Miss Odette? However, she quickly regained her confidence. Bayan glanced at her. Odette gently stroked her hair to one side. One side of her cheek was red from the slap just now. Before what just happened, she still did not change her attitude, still calm and polite. It's surprising, even though she was insulted like that, her expression didn't change. Odette gently lifted her skirt. Bastion realized something. Could it be? He was very surprised that Odette could still be so calm. Will she still maintain her price by dancing to the end of the waltz, as if that embarrassment and humiliation were nothing? Just like the day she was sold by her father due to gambling debts, she still dared. Anyway, she is very strong and brave. Only this can be acknowledged. Now Miss Odette looks like a proud queen. Bastion put his hand behind. If so, then I will gladly accept. Bastion politely replied to Odette. If so, then I will gladly accept it. Even though her face is pale as if she wants to faint immediately, she will still proudly maintain her dignity to the end. She deserves to receive a polite invitation to dance with all sincerity. Everyone was surprised and continued to discuss in an uproar. What is that after all? Bastion and Odette were still very relaxed when such a big thing had just happened. Even though they just encountered such a thing, the two of them still seemed to be okay. Bastion realized something unusual, indeed. Odette was trembling with fear. This woman is trembling. Just now she was very calm, but now she is scared. Her face has turned pale. Even so, she still pretends that nothing happened in front of everyone. Suddenly a hot tear ran down Odette's cheek. Suddenly Odette tripped. Bastion quickly pulled her back. Odette turned to him in surprise. He advised her to try to endure it. You don't want everyone to find out you're trembling, do you? Odette blushed shyly. Bastion took Odette's hand. The two strode side by side. Just like that, they left the center position. In a corner of the room, the Countess was standing quietly waiting for Odette. She thought to herself, Bastion Clausewitz. She silently watched the two of them. Although I have been following him throughout the dance, he exudes the politeness and relaxation of an aristocrat in a strange way. The Countess couldn't believe her eyes. I didn't believe they would cross the threshold of the royal palace for the first time in their lives. When the two of them arrived at her place, was it fun to be with Odette? Bastion politely replied, it is an honor to be with such a beautiful lady on such a special day. Well, see you again, Captain. Yes, Countess. Bastion and the Countess said goodbye to each other. Odette and the Countess stood watching Bastion's back as he left. The Countess turned to ask Odette, what do you think of Bastion? Suddenly her eyes widened. Odette felt dizzy and uncomfortable. Are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. The Countess felt bitter and sorry for Odette. How can you be okay after encountering such a thing? She pitied her and admired Bastion for being willing to sympathize with Odette, whether this child has to endure in this situation or whether Bastion is willing to sympathize with the child. Who is more cruel of the two? Praised Odette's mother for teaching her well. Helene raised her daughter very well. But however, still criticized Odette's mother's choice of husband. Her eyes for men seem bad, but she is a good mother. The Countess smiled brightly. Well done. You were very perfect. Before the praise of Countess Trier, Odette was very surprised. Then her face immediately sank. She said softly, "Thank you, Countess." Outside a gambling house, Dessen was pushed to the ground. The gambling house owner shouted angrily, "Don't say such unreasonable words, bring the money here quickly, money." He knelt and begged, "Let me play one more game, if so, I will share a portion of the money I receive with you." The gambling house owner loudly said, "Oh my God, what a daydream." The owner didn't bother to pay attention to him, scolded him and closed the door and left, the kind of person who is in debt and has all the money they have stolen. Dessen angrily cursed in his heart, "Damn it, after getting involved with those unlucky officers, nothing goes right." He stood up and brushed off his clothes. "I was even kicked out of the game in this suburb." Suddenly someone called him, "Hey, are you Duke Dessen?" The black-haired man said, "Looks like you lost the bet and got kicked out again, right? This isn't your place, go see your eldest daughter." Dessen wondered, why suddenly? "What about my daughter?" The man continued to say, "I heard people say that she has a man, maybe she has received pocket money for her father." But Duke Dessen didn't care. "Odette has a man? I've heard all those nonsense words." The man didn't know where he heard it. "If not, why is she dressed up and frolicking every night?" Hearing that, Duke Dessen turned around sharply. "What?" The image of Odette leaving the carriage was told by the man, "Not long ago, I clearly saw her get out of the carriage in the middle of the night, moreover, see. That carriage was very glittering and magnificent, isn't it unusual?" The next sentence of the man made Duke Dessen unable to say anything more. "I don't know, but it seems that she has hooked a wealthy man. You as a father don't care what your daughter does and where she goes?" Duke Dessen walked alone on the street. He silently pondered, thinking about it, that child has been going out frequently recently, it seems that she has something to hide. Suddenly he stopped when he saw Odette. He quickly hid behind a wall. "Odette." Then he peeked out to look at her wondering, "Dressed like that, where is she going?" Then Duke Dessen remembered the words that the man said, "I heard people say that she has a man." Duke Dessen couldn't believe it and started to suspect Odette. Could it be, that child really? He leaned against the wall in shock. This matter can't just stand still and watch. He decided to follow Odette. "I have to confirm directly." At a high-end restaurant in downtown Reinfeld, the waiter stood politely pouring wine. A voice rang out, "Thank you for inviting me, Countess." The waiter turned around and left after finishing his work. Only Odette and the Countess were left in the room. Odette said softly, "But..." She felt worried about the necklace that Isabelle had broken last time. "What about that necklace?" The Countess teased her. "It seems that you still have time to worry about the broken necklace after encountering that matter, right?" Odette replied, "I didn't fulfill my responsibility to the thing that people trusted me to borrow, so I'm not at ease." The Countess took the glass of wine on the table and said calmly, "I don't like goodwill only through beautiful words, girl." Odette said seriously, "I will seriously repay if the Countess wants." The Countess wondered, "Me, want what?" Odette said, "I want to talk to His Majesty the Emperor. That matter was entirely due to the misunderstanding of Princess Diane Ha." The image of the broken necklace appeared. The Countess said casually, "You want to ask the father to compensate for the gemstone necklace that his daughter broke? It seems that the Emperor will prick up his ears and listen to your words." Odette immediately retorted, "Although he doesn't care about me, I think he won't forget the reasoning with the noble superiors in the royal family, which is the Countess here." Countess Trier smiled lightly. Odette's expression was surprised. "That's right, it's really troublesome when the Emperor of the Empire can't resolve the mistakes of the princess. I will send a request to the royal palace according to the estimated repair costs from the gemstone store." Odette's eyes widened and asked, "So it can be repaired?" The Countess lifted the glass of wine and replied, "Yes, they said it's thanks to you collecting each broken stone." Odette smiled happily, "That's great, Countess." The Countess narrowed her eyes, silently praising the girl in front of her. Facing a stranger, she is not like a rock, but smiles brightly like a flower blooming in the dark. The scene of the restaurant with people coming and going, the sound of music and voices mixed together. "Oh, I heard that Isabelle has been taken to the summer palace of the royal family. The situation is no different from being imprisoned there." The Countess comforted Odette, "So you can rest assured and focus on the marriage completely. Look at the upper class is noisy about the matter at the dance. It seems that the effect is obvious." She said, "As time goes by, Isabelle will also accept reality and give up Bastian Thoy." Odette nodded and replied, "Yes." The Countess seemed to be waiting for someone. "By the way, it should have been time to appear already." Suddenly a voice rang out behind her, "Oh my." A white-haired man appeared. What a coincidence, Countess Trier. The Countess turned around and greeted happily. I didn't expect to meet the Admiral here. Odette was surprised and wondered in her heart. Admiral? Another person also appeared, and Bastian also appeared. He was surprised to meet Odette in this situation. Odette seemed surprised by his appearance. The Countess greeted him happily. It's an honor to meet Captain Closets again. Bastian was surprised and didn't say anything. Odette was also very surprised to see Bastian. The Countess smiled and said, It's great, because it's been a long time since we've met like this. She suggested everyone have a meal together. Let's have a meal together, what do you say? The sky with floating clouds, sunlight shining through those clouds and stopping at a restaurant exclusively for the aristocracy, at the restaurant in the downtown area, where famous people in the upper class frequent. That restaurant only serves the upper-class families, high-ranking officials, and those belonging to the most powerful class in society. Lunchtime on the 7th. The busiest time, there were two girls looking ahead whispering to each other. And right at the table placed in a position that attracts everyone's attention, an arrangement so skillful that it seems random, that places the dining table of 4 people. Just a glance is enough to recognize, their presence is something that no one can miss. This is ridiculous. Bastian Closets looked around, his face cold with a bit of boredom. He picked up a glass of red wine, slowly brought it to his lips, his eyes calm as if he understood everything that was happening. Because they wanted the upper-class people to see him and Miss Odette next to each other, those two had arranged this matter. Sitting at the same table with him were 2 people. Marquis Demel and Countess Trier. The 2 of them were talking to each other, making the space between him and Miss Odette private in a very intentional way. He gently shook the glass of wine in his hand, closed his eyes and pondered. The Emperor must be restless if he saw them using such shallow tricks, even causing a riot at the dance. His eyes coldly looked into the space, as if he didn't care about this. So what, it doesn't matter. Sooner or later they have to show the image of him and that lady meeting. Odette sat opposite, her face not expressing emotions. She quietly enjoyed the meal. Marquis Demel smiled softly, raised his hand to signal and spoke to break the silence. Isn't the weather very cold today? Although it's April, winter has arrived again. The weather in Rastu is too erratic. He put his hand on his chin, his face flashed with worry and continued, Oh right, it would be troublesome if the match was delayed due to the weather. Funan Trier looked at him and asked softly, Do you have an important event? He replied, Yes, the friendly polo match between the customs and the army is scheduled to take place next weekend. This is a meaningful activity organized annually to strengthen the harmony of the army on both sides. Funan Trier said, Oh, I've heard about it too. Her face was calm. She glanced at him and asked, Is the captain also participating in that match? He paused for a moment and then calmly replied, Yes, Countess. In the somewhat suffocating atmosphere, where everyone's eyes were cautious and wary of each other, suddenly Marquis Demel excitedly patted him on the shoulder repeatedly and said loudly, Actually, Captain Closets is the best player on the team. Every time he is the main force who scores good points. Even though he was dragged into the middle of the story, his face did not change at all. Funan Trier continued, Is that so? So he is not only active on the battlefield, he immediately continued, Of course, whether it's on the front line or on the playing field. He is a hero who doesn't know failure. In that situation, at the dining table, only the 2 of them continued to talk, while she and him, still quietly faced each other without saying a word. Odette still maintained her attitude of silence. She calmly brought the food to her mouth. The movements were slow, as if the surroundings had nothing to do with her. He kept talking about him non-stop. He holds from great achievements to strategic tactics. Surely the day of commanding the fleet is not far away. Her face was indifferent and didn't care about those words. She swallowed the food and let out a small sigh. After finishing eating, she gently took a napkin to wipe her mouth, her eyes still without emotion, stopped for a moment on the plate with the remaining food. In her heart she thought, There's too much food left, I'm sorry. Bastian Closets looked up, his eyes accidentally met her face when she had just finished eating. Marquis Demel still happily smiled and kept boasting about him. It's not because he is my superior that I say so. The captain is really an outstanding soldier. No different from a treasure of the navy. He heard him say that and glanced with a sarcastic face, thinking to himself, even a treasure of the navy is not as good as salmon. After boasting about him, Marquis Demel turned his head and asked Odette, By the way, how about Miss Odette also try to watch the match? It would be great if you came as the captain's partner. I'm sure the lady will enjoy a fun time. She looked blankly when she heard his question. Her eyes looked away elsewhere. The captain's partner closet is. She suddenly remembered that day. I heard that it is polite for the player's partner to attend from the welcome party to the dinner party. The image in her head reappeared as a dance between her and Bastian. If so, then I and Bastian have to act like the dance night last time. The nobles of the upper class will also come in full force, even those who attended the dance back then. The image of the judgmental eyes of other nobles looking at her. Isabel slapped her in the face and angrily shouted loudly in the middle of the crowded party, "You're a beggar, that thing has no self-respect." She closed her eyes tightly and felt a shiver when she thought back to that scene. Now I have nowhere to run. The three of them looked at her waiting for an answer. She lowered her face, and hesitated to answer the Marquis's words, "If you invited me then." Her face was a little sad, but she still spoke. "I will be happy to attend," she told herself. "I have to take responsibility for my own decisions. It's okay, I know how to protect my feelings. If I don't give away feelings or even anything." In front of her was Bastian Closets, his face without emotion, holding a glass of wine in his hand. "In this marriage, I will never be hurt." The lunch ended, they walked together to the horse carriage. Funan Trier turned around and said to him, "Because I have something urgent to report to the Empire, Miss Odette will have to rely on the captain." Even Marquis Demel also turned his head and said, "Didn't we just have a meal, so you can take the lady back, right, Captain?" She was startled when she heard the two of them speak. Funan Trier just stepped onto the carriage while speaking in a soft but meaningful voice, "Enjoy the time together." Immediately after, Marquis Demel also stepped up and said, "See you again, Captain." The two of them clearly made an excuse to leave, leaving a private space for him and her, an arrangement so skillful that anyone who looked at it could think that this was a date that was implicitly acknowledged. She and him quietly stood watching the horse carriage walk away without anyone saying a word. She shyly stroked her hair. Bastian Closets looked at her, then spoke to break the awkward atmosphere. "So it turned out that all of this was their plan." She smiled softly, seeming to understand the intention of the two people who had just left. Her voice was gentle and said, "Perhaps we should pay more attention to everyone's eyes." He also realized it and exclaimed, "That's also because of the imperial mandate, let's just follow it." He gently turned to look at her. His voice still kept the politeness and continued, "If the lady has any place to think of, just say it, Miss Odette." After hearing him speak, her face turned to him in a daze. Her eyes were blank as if she hadn't had time to fully understand the meaning of that invitation. She put her hand on her chin, her eyebrows furrowed slightly, thinking about where to go now. After thinking for a while, she blurted out, "I'm sorry, but I don't know much about things like this." Bastian turned to look at her and asked, "Things like this?" She replied, "Then it's about the relationship between a lady and a young gentleman." Her eyes suddenly lit up, nodded in agreement. "I will do it the way the captain does." "See, you saying that isn't a good idea." He smiled and looked at her eyes with a teasing look and said, "You startled me." She thought to herself, "What, did I slip up?" A bit of confusion flashed by. She proposed an idea. "Then what about a place with many people paying attention? After all, this meeting is to create rumors." He turned his head to look elsewhere and said, "That direction will bring the most effect." He looked around where he was standing, considering if there was any suitable place to take her. He secretly thought, the opera house is not bad, but it's not yet time for the performance to start. Jumping in at this time will be difficult to get a good seat. Then Bastian glanced elsewhere. The shopping center. There are too many people. On the contrary, it is difficult to attract attention. He thought for a moment, or go to the hotel. Bastian turned to look at the girl standing next to him. Her innocent face made him silently abandon the intention just now. It's difficult to cooperate with this lady in that way. "If so then," he asked her, "does the lady like paintings?" Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared. It was Dessin. He stood quietly behind the wall, his eyes carefully observing Bastian Closets and Odette when they stood next to each other. He had a surprised look when he saw her and him together. He thought to himself, "She is dating a man. That person's words are true." After observing for a while, Dessin felt something was strange but wasn't sure. "But why does that person's face look so familiar? I remember meeting him somewhere." Dessin startled, horror filled his eyes when he realized that the person standing next to his daughter was Bastian Closets. "It's the officer who won the bet money at the casino." The image of him winning the bet at the casino suddenly appeared in his mind. Dessin's face was full of fear when he realized that, that's right, it's that guy. A large white building stands out in the city, the Museum of Art History. Bastian took her to a location. This place also has many nobles passing by. She and him together proceeded towards the museum. Around the museum, there were many nobles here. when Bastion Closets and Odette appeared, they immediately attracted attention to them, causing those nobles who saw the two people to whisper and discuss with each other. Bastion glanced at the expressions and noticed how they were discussing. He thought to himself, "It seems that I have chosen a suitable location." She startled as if she was discovering something. At this time, the sky gradually darkened. Suddenly a few small snowflakes were falling from the clouds at the place where he and she were standing. She stopped and looked up at those white snowflakes falling, her eyes surprised as if this was the first time she had seen it, causing him to also raise his head to look at her. Suddenly she ran forward. He watched her back as she left. His face was neither happy nor sad, but he thought to himself, "At first I thought I had to bear all the troublesome burdens." Bastion Closets looked at Odette absent-mindedly putting out his hand to catch the snow. He thought again, "But somehow, Miss Odette is like an unexpected gift that came to me. Thanks to that, I have entered the upper class with attention and flattery. Even the princess, who is like a ticking time bomb, can also be eliminated." He stood there as if he had never taken his eyes off her. A snowflake fell on Odette's eyelashes. Even if fate transforms throughout the bottom of society, Bastion Closets took off his hat. He held his hat and walked closer to Odette, who was removing the snow on her eyelashes. That girl clearly carries a noble lineage and status. Bastion Closets put his hat on her, calculating in his head, marriage was such an object. Odette looked up at him. Bastion Closets again thought to himself, "It will definitely be a history that enhances my value." He showed a friendly smile and spoke up, "We can start acting now." Bastion Closets said in his head, "The plan must be adjusted more or less, but at least it will be like that." The two stood close together, like a young couple in love, but the calculations in Bastion Closets' head were completely different from what he showed on the outside. "Rejoice until the day you use up all the usefulness. I will exploit this girl thoroughly." Later, there were two girls talking to each other. The brunette spoke first. She whispered, "I heard that those two were cooperated by the emperor, right?" The blonde also continued, "Yes, I saw it clearly at the dance." At this time Odette stood next to Bastion Closets. The two of them were standing in front of a painting of flowers. The two girls exclaimed, "It's really a beautiful couple." Looking at Bastion Closets, they whispered to each other, "Captain Closets is a little different from the rumors. He's completely not like the person who would run away with the princess." The other replied, "That's right, maybe it's just nonsense rumors." On the other side, the blue-brown-haired girl said, "Anyway, those two are getting the most attention here." The brunette next to her continued, "Even the upper class recently has nothing but the two of them. What is it called?" She hesitated to say. The brunette said and spoke, "I remember it now." Looking at Bastion Closets with his arms crossed and Odette next to him, she said, "The beggar princess and the grandson of the scrap metal shop." He spoke up at this time, "It's enough to attract attention to this extent." Looking at the people around, Bastion Closets continued, "Before long, the rumors about us will spread throughout the upper class. The story about the marriage is progressing smoothly despite the riot that happened at the ball." After saying that, he glanced at her. Seeing Odette not focusing, Bastion Closets called, "Miss Odette." She came back to her senses, turned to him a little embarrassed, "I'm sorry, because I was focused on looking at the painting." He continued, "It seems that the lady really likes paintings." Odette hesitated to answer. "Yes," Bastion Closets suggested, "then let's go enjoy a little more. It seems that they also have a special hall." She looked at him and agreed, "Okay, Captain." Looking at the clock on the wall, Odette skillfully said, "It's almost time for my sister to get out of school. It happens that the school is nearby, so I will go home with her." Bastion Closets heard that and asked curiously, "Sister? But I heard that Miss Odette is the only daughter of Princess Helene." As if understanding something, she replied, "Oh, actually." She lowered her eyes and said, "She is my half-sister." Odette thought in her head, "Currently Tira's mother, who no longer exists in this world, is a servant that I occasionally help with housework." Odette remembered the image of herself holding Tira's hand and walking on the street, and spoke up, "Although people point and say that Tira is an illegitimate child, I have never once thought that Tira is not my family." Again remembered the memory of Tira frequently being beaten by Dessen, but the heartless father always beats and scolds Tira for being a lowly child. Just as his hand was raised, there was a shout, "Stop." Odette clenched her fist and stood there, looking at him. Dessen gritted his teeth and stopped. Odette spoke for Bastion Closets to hear, as well as for herself, "In order to protect Tira from that place, I need the subsidy." Odette pursed her lips, looking at her father, and continued, "A father needs the money that the royal family provides for me, so he cannot treat me arbitrarily." With just that much, I can become Tira's shield. Returning to reality, Bastion Closets looked at her and said softly, anyway, the young lady's relationship with her younger sister seems very good. Odette smiled slightly and replied, yes, to me, she's an extremely precious younger sister. He smirked and continued, that's really strange, I can't think like that. After saying that, Bastion Closets turned around and walked away. Well, let's go back. Perhaps this is enough. Odette lowered her eyes and thought silently. On second thought, the Countess was right. Remembering Franz Closet's face, she thought, I heard that the two Closets brothers have different mothers. No wonder they didn't seem close at the ball. Looking at his back, Odette wondered, I found it strange when I heard that the heir to the Closets family was the second son. Does he have some unspeakable secret? Outside at this time, the snow still showed no signs of stopping. Talbot Lagos and carriages were moving on the road. Bastion Closets rested his cheek on his hand, holding the steering wheel. He remembered Odette's words when she saw him off to the car, I'll stop here and say goodbye. He turned back and said, it is my duty to see the young lady home. I will take the young lady's sister back with me. Odette gently refused, no, thank you. She explained, Tira, she will feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to trouble you anymore. Hearing this, Bastion Closets said, the snow won't stop easily. It will be very tiring for the young lady to walk. Odette closed her eyes and said decisively, we will take the electric train. I will accept and be grateful for your kindness. Bastion Closets rested his cheek on his hand, looking out the window, anyway, I have an appointment tonight, I don't need to be rude for this uncooperative woman. On this side, Odette and Tira were standing by the road waiting for the train. Bastion Closets sat in the car, watching Tira talking and smiling, that's the younger sister she was just talking about. He compared in his mind, the two sisters have no strikingly similar points. The electric train arrived at this time. The people standing behind Odette also started jostling to get on the train. The crowd was crowded, pushing each other. Odette was hit by the crowd, causing her to stagger. The two sisters, Odette and Tira, tried to squeeze onto the train with the crowd. Bastion Closets sat in the car with a blank face, thinking, perhaps they won't be able to get on the electric train this time. After a while, the train finally left the station. Bastion Closets stepped on the pedal at this time. He sped down the road. Bastion Closets focused on driving, looking straight ahead. In his mind, he thought of the image of Odette being hit by the crowd. His face had no expression. He remembered her face flushed red, standing outside in the snow. Bastion Closets still didn't change his expression. He remembered her hands trembling with cold. Bastion Closets couldn't help it anymore, he lowered his head and sighed. He quickly turned the steering wheel. He turned the car around and drove back to the train station. Arriving at the place, Bastion Closets opened the door and stepped out. Standing in the snow, he called out, Lady Ode. Odette, he suddenly stopped, looking back at the place where Odette stood with her sister, they had left long ago. On the other side, the electric train was running on the road. Faintly visible through the window were the figures of Odette and her sister, Bastion Closets thought, so she squeezed through the crowd and got on the electric train. He stood in the snow, thinking about Odette, such a strong will, that girl. The next morning, at the polo field. Odette recalled Helena's words, Odette, high society is a battlefield. It is very important to grasp the intentions they hide in every conversation. Otherwise, you will easily become their laughingstock. The pink ribbon in her hair flew proudly in the wind. Looking around the arena, Odette said to herself, I don't know when I will be able to return to the royal family. I thought it was useless when my mother taught me even the etiquette of high society. She stood there, appearing in a gorgeous evening gown, as if she had stepped out of a painting, Odette thought, but I didn't expect that such a situation would come. Suddenly someone asked her, Lady Odette, right? Odette turned to look. Seeing this, the person smiled and greeted, first time meeting you. Then she introduced herself, I am Sandrine Denlavier. As a matter of course, Odette politely bowed her head, hello. At this time, Sandrine Denlavier said again, I watched your waltz with Bastion at the last ball. She came closer to her, and said with regret, if there hadn't been such a commotion, I might have come to greet you under Bastion's introduction. That's a pity. Hearing this, Odette wondered in her heart, is this person close to the captain? Sandrine Denlavier came closer, so. Standing in front of Odette, she said, from this moment on, I hope you will definitely remember my name. Hearing this, Odette was slightly startled. Sandrine Denlavier's face sank, completely different from the smiling expression just now. We will meet often in the future, Lady Odette. After saying that, without waiting for Odette to react, she turned around and left. She stood there, watching Sandrine Denlavier's back gradually fade away. Odette was shocked in her heart. What? She thought suspiciously, just said a few words and turned around and left. Ella Von Klein appeared behind her. Odette turned her head in surprise. She said, "Oh my, she's already using her maiden name again, huh? She's still Countess Leonard." After finishing speaking, Ella Von Klein put her hand on her chest and turned to smile and ask Odette, "Does the young lady remember me?" As if wanting to remind her. She continued, "We greeted each other briefly at the dance festival." Odette looked at her. The young lady is the daughter of Count Klein, the fiancé of young Franz Clausitz. As if wanting to be sure, she asked again, "I haven't been rude to the young lady, have I?" Ella Von Klein smiled brightly and replied, "That's right, the young lady remembers very accurately." "You are so kind." After hearing this, Odette asked curiously, "But what do you mean by the maiden name?" Looking at Sandrine Denlavier's figure in the distance, Ella Von Klein spoke to Odette. "That person is preparing to divorce, so she doesn't want to be called by her husband's surname anymore. That's how it is. Everyone in high society knows that the Countess is going through divorce proceedings with her husband's family, a prestigious family in Pelia." Odette understood and said, "So that's it." She thought to herself, "She said we will meet often in the future, what exactly does she mean?" On the other side, seeing Odette talking to a group of other young ladies, those people said boredly, "I heard that the beggar princess has collapsed. I was waiting to see. But it turns out there's nothing interesting." Looking at her like that, those people said, "At the ball, because Countess Trier was by her side, she was like that. But if she was alone, she might not be able to do anything and would be in a mess." The other person also chimed in, "Of course, is this really her first time in high society?" The orange-haired girl said again, "Yes, I'm sure I've never seen this person before." The girl next to her also added, "But if it's her first time, isn't she very natural? She's not even embarrassed." Looking at Odette smiling beautifully over there, they said again, "The etiquette is exactly like a young lady from a well-educated family." At this time, someone came. It was Claudine von Brandt. She said, looking at it, "The dress is really beautiful, it suits the young lady very well, Claudine von Brandt." Claudine von Brandt stepped closer to Odette. She smiled and said, "It's from the Lane brand, right? I also really like that shop. The tailors there know how to handle silk and chiffon properly." Ella Von Klein was surprised on one side. Is there a shop called Lane? She was caught up in her own thoughts. If it's a famous brand with beautiful clothes, then the young ladies would have been to the shop often. But this is the first time I've heard people in high society talk about this name. Looking at Claudine von Brandt smiling in front of her, Ella Von Klein thought again, could it be a trap? She misunderstood again. That's right, there's no way a strange beggar could wear a dress from a high-end brand here. Ella Von Klein observed the material of the dress on Odette. What she's wearing is just similar to the clothes of skilled tailors. According to the sleeves, it seems like she's modified someone else's dress. At this time, the girl next to her leaned close to Ella Von Klein's ear and whispered, "No wonder, noticing that she's unusually composed, His Majesty is really talented. I heard that this is a pawn to protect the princess, so it's worth preparing a few dresses." Ella Von Klein laughed after hearing this, and replied softly, "Originally, the marriage was carried out hastily, there's no extra time to prepare dresses." Ella Von Klein thought in her heart, what? If it's a royal decree, although she can modify as many clothes as she wants. Looking at Odette, she mocked in her heart, but it seems like she didn't do that much. The value of this woman in the royal family is only that much. The girl next to Ella Von Klein continued to whisper, once she blindly responds, she will lose face and be humiliated. She asked curiously, how will she answer? Odette spoke at this time, "Lady Brandt." Claudine von Brandt looked at her. Odette smiled and said, "Thank you for your praise. In fact, my eye for fashion and clothing preferences are not yet proficient, so I am receiving help from my attendant. Fortunately, the Countess's granddaughter has a similar figure to me, so I was lucky enough to try out dresses that have not yet been released by many shops." She stood facing Claudine von Brandt, confidently continued, "I will also prioritize going to the shop that you just mentioned." Hearing this, she froze. The atmosphere fell into silence. The chattering girl next to Ella Von Klein, who had been talking non-stop, also stuttered, "This." Ella Von Klein and that girl whispered to each other, "If that's the case, then who is the winner?" The girl also hesitated, let's see. At this time, several young men walked in one after another at the entrance. Someone exclaimed, it seems that the players have entered. Claudine von Brandt also seized the opportunity. She turned around and said, I have to go see now. See you later, Lady Odette. Odette didn't say anything and just looked at her. After taking one step, Claudine von Brandt stopped. She turned back, pretending to know, that dress is from the Sabine shop. Claudine von Brandt didn't forget to add, I just confused the brand name, please forgive me. Odette nodded to show that she understood. She calmly said, of course. She wasn't easily bullied and continued sarcastically, I'll try to think that nothing happened. Odette stood there watching Claudine von Brandt turn away and leave. Several people there also said hurriedly, then I'll go too, me too, see you next time. After leaving, Ella von Klein glanced over and saw someone. It was her fiancé. Ella von Klein called out, Franz. Hearing this, Franz Clausewitz turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. Odette, behind her, also saw him. His eyes widened when he saw Odette. He exclaimed in his heart, Lady Odette. Ella von Klein walked closer and asked, why are you so late? I'm so bored being alone. Franz Clausewitz vaguely agreed, still not fully recovered. Odette also stepped forward, thinking in her heart, I have to say hello to the captain's younger brother. Suddenly, her hand was grabbed by someone. Odette glanced back and a warm male voice rang out, let's go, Lady Odette. She turned her head to look. It turned out that Bastian Clausewitz was holding her hand. Odette looked up at him, hello, Captain. She obediently continued, but since I'm meeting your younger brother, I want to say hello. Bastian softly replied to Odette's words, the young lady doesn't need to pay attention to that thing. Odette thought with concern about his words, that thing? But then she dismissed those thoughts, not thinking too much. Bastian smiled at her, indicating that she should take his arm. She listened and took his arm, but with a forced look, oh well. Suddenly he turned back with a murderous look, as if wanting to kill someone. Franz Clausewitz had an expression of extreme fear and surprise at being looked at by Bastian. Odette, as she turned back to look, seemed certain of her speculation, as expected. The two of them walked towards the door. Her speculation about them was, the two of them are not close to each other. When the two of them walked out arm in arm, there was a figure of a girl hiding behind the pillars, quietly watching them leave. For some reason, the person's hand holding the pillar trembled. She was in the midst of evaluating the person in her mind. Clearly, the actions of the princess are childish. But I understand the mood. It turned out that the person standing behind the pillar was Sandrine. With a somber and thoughtful expression, she desperately wanted to have that man in her heart. Her thoughts were extremely melancholy, and only she understood. How many people in this world understand? With a regretful expression, she could only raise her hand to the sky and complain, if only I had never married. Her hand raised regretfully as she saw the two of them walking arm in arm, knowing she was rooted to the spot but unable to do anything. Bastian, do you belong to me now? Scene changed to a party in a magnificent and luxurious palace. Guests are standing and talking to each other. Bastian's hand gently brushed Odette's hair behind her ear. Bastian gently lifted the strands of her hair. The scene looked so beautiful that even the flowers had to bloom. He gently brought his face closer and whispered in Odette's ear, today's dress is really beautiful. It seems that thanks to me, the precious tea is still abundant. After hearing those compliments, her face became radiant and she smiled in reply, of course, you don't need to worry about my dress money, Captain. The two smiled brightly at each other. From afar, someone spoke with admiration, oh my God. Two ladies looked at them with admiration mixed with a bit of jealousy, is that really Captain Bastian? A man who was once like a pastor, even though all the ladies of high society coveted him. Sandrine heard them say that, and from behind, her face turned black when she heard them constantly talking about Bastian's marriage to someone else. After all, it's a relationship that was bestowed in marriage. It's true that he is a man who never shows any desire. The two of them were so engrossed in talking that no one noticed behind them. Bastian's blue eyes drooped, looking extremely beautiful, and suddenly turned to look. When Sandrine felt his gaze, her face became stiff and evasive, a bit unnatural. Bastian was looking for a way to get away from Odette, thinking of a way, there's no other way, and then spoke with embarrassment, what to do, I forgot my equipment, I'll go get it and come back. She spoke sympathetically when she heard him say that, it's okay, you can go. In her heart, she secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thank goodness, my corset is too tight. I'm feeling uncomfortable. She quickly put her hand on her dress and hurriedly left. I have to go to the dressing room for a while. On Bastian's side, he also walked away. The two of them turned their backs to each other and walked in their own directions. Sandrine was leaning against the wall, her hand raised to her head, pondering alone about her regrets. If only I had never married, would Bastian belong to me now? Her eyes looked thoughtful and sad, the thoughts in her heart seemed to be crowding each other to escape. Those grievances cannot be told to anyone. No, if I didn't have the flaw of divorce,